3, 2, 1, action.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we're going to begin our night with recognition of some of our students that are here. I'll hand it over to Mr. Trombley to introduce them.
Thank you, President Mills. Good evening, everybody. If the board adopts the agenda as it stands, we have an action-packed agenda for you, ranging from budget information to considerations on a public hearing. I have to step out at 7:30 on a programming note for a snow call, in case you're all wondering why I'm leaving. So I do want to thank our gracious hosts at Frank G. Lindsay, Mr. Mackin and his staff for welcoming us. We are, as you know, spending most of our spring board meetings in the buildings because the Board of Education wants to see the buildings, the people, the community that is in each of our buildings, because the decisions that we make at this level we know impact that. So that's a kudos to the board for taking that effort. We are going to start off this evening by a wonderful performance by some of our Frank G. Lindsay budding musicians, led by Miss Landry and her student teacher, Miss Gibson, who is a HenHUD alumni, correct? And they will be performing a piece called Accolade. So I will stop talking, and you can listen to the wonderful sounds of our ensemble. So thank you. Thank you so much, performers, and Miss Landry and Miss Gibson. I do want to make sure we call up Mr. Mackin, principal of Frank G. Lindsay Elementary, to say a few words, and then we're going to present you with some certificates. And what we'll have you do as you're putting away your instruments, when we call your name, if you could walk down the stairs, and we'll hand you the certificate, and we'll pose for a picture for your parents if they'd like.
All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to families, friends, the millions watching on YouTube right now. We appreciate you coming and watching our students perform. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, excellent performance. Some issues with the piano and the bass. We'll talk about it tomorrow, especially Molly, because you're making me feel old. But other than that, I think it's just a testament to the music program and the arts program here. I have 4 children. They all played instruments. They did not sound like that. It was not even close to that. So great job by Miss Landry and our music department. We have some other members of our music department. Where's Mr. Frank? Did he leave?
He's helping.
Oh, he's helping? Good man, Mr. Frank. Miss Morbido, our department leader, thank you for all your help setting this up. Miss Landry, can you come up and maybe introduce all the students for us? Okay, 1 second.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Landry, the orchestra director here at Frank G. Lindsay, along with a small sample representing the 60-plus instrumentalists in the FGL 5th grade orchestra. These students have been playing only about a year and a half and just performed an outstanding concert last week. We'll be showcasing, and we just showcased that for you now. When you go to our extremely impressive high school concerts, see the list of our students who have gotten into regional, state, and national music festivals, or hear about the large percentage of HHCSD students who graduate high school and go on to become lifetime participants in, or for some, like my student teacher, who is a HHCSD grad, professionals in the music arts. Research, all that starts right here. Leading childhood education pedagogues consistently bring forth research to show the importance of music as a core subject and its frequency taught in public schools at the elementary level. So from musical movement and vocal exploration in general music, twice a cycle at Furnace Woods and BV, to a build of those skills through the recorder unit and beginning orchestra, band, and chorus here at FGL, and finally to our award-winning middle school and high school groups. Again, it all starts here with them. So, thank you for our representatives for showing us our very special place in that wonderful musical continuum where over 95% of our FGL 4th and 5th graders choose to participate in our elective instrumental program every single year. So thank you very much to Jordan, Wendy, Blake, Elliot, Lennox, and Grayson.
Now, this is where you guys just rush the superintendent and see if he knows who you are.
So we'll call Jordan up first, please.
That's very well played, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations. We stand here for a picture. So I had the pleasure of coaching this young student at the kickball tournament on Friday. So Wendy, please come up as a member of the Blake. Elliot. Elliot wants a snow day tomorrow. So. Grayson. That's 2 votes for a snow day. And then Lennox. Okay. And Lennox said she didn't want a snow day. I won't, no, her friends will want it. Congratulations.
Just really quickly, Mr. Trombley, I also just want to bring attention to some of the, not just our performing arts, but we do have a wonderful visual art display in our main hallway here. Ms. Fearman works with all of our students in our art studio downstairs. She is a wonderful, wonderful art teacher and person, which I just love her. And, you know, on your way out, please, you know, take a look at some of the really fantastic art that's taking place downstairs in our art studio. So that's all. Thank you.
So as we transition to our regular Board of Education meeting, parents who have come to support the performers and the performers themselves, you're more than welcome to stay for the meeting, but if not, you can use this opportunity to head home and study for school tomorrow. And so just as we're transitioning, want to thank Ms. Carmen Koch, Mr. Mackin, the music department, Ms. Morbido. These student recognitions are vital to us not only highlighting some of the great things that our students and our staff do and support, but they also help bring our board meeting to a focus of the children. But they do not happen very easily. There's a lot of coordination. It's time away from, obviously, their households. It's work to print up certificates, to coordinate with students, to identify the topics. So I really want to recognize the people who take the time to do that each come back. So I will turn it back over to President Mills.
That was wonderful. Great way to start our meeting. I love hearing our students perform. It's one of my favorite things. So thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. Now we move on to the approval of our agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated? Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. That moves us into our time for our public hearing on our alternative veterans exemption.
Anybody want to get up and speak on the exemption for the public hearing?
We're going to give it a couple minutes, right, in case anyone...
Claire, can you put up the resolution?
So while we're waiting for any public comment on the proposed resolution that Greg will display, just to summarize, the board is considering adopting, beginning with the 2025 assessment roll, which will be utilized for the school tax year levy for the 2026-2027 school year. The board is considering an alternative veterans exemption within section 458 alpha of the real property tax law, where the standard minimum maximum exemption amounts for a wartime combat veteran will be $12,000, designated combat veteran of $8,000, and a veteran with a disability would be $40,000. And so the board is holding a public hearing this evening to hear comments on adopting this resolution, enacting the exemptions, and we will also have an additional public hearing on consideration of the Gold Star families exemption, which we'll display after this public hearing.
Are we ready to vote? you have the resolutions up? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the alternative veterans exemption.
Second.
All in favor?
Point of privilege. Just if any veteran is wondering, there is no application process needed if you have already applied through the town of Cortland or the city of Peekskill for this exemption. So if you already have that exemption off of your village and town taxes, you will not need to reapply for this. It will be automatically applied. It's always a good idea to check with the town hall though. And similar to that will be the Gold Star exemption as well, if the board adopts.
Okay, we're moving on to our public hearing of the extension to Gold Star parents. We want to explain what this is and qualifies for this.
So as the board enters into a public hearing, the board is considering the adoption of the veterans exemption to include Gold Star parents. Gold Star parents are those families, those parents who have lost a child in a combat, in a designated combat era. So these are individuals who have given the ultimate sacrifice of their child to the cause that they were fighting for. And this again will begin with if adopted, it will begin with the 2025 assessment roll, which will be utilized for the tax levy of the 2026-2027 school year.
Ready to vote on this? Everyone? Want to make a
Motion to approve the extension to Gold Star parents.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I want to thank the board and our staff and the town of Cortland and everyone that worked with us to get this put together for this year, because we know there is a delay in the time. And we learned a lot through the process, so thank you all for your help in that. That moves us to audience comments on non-agenda items. Okay. Does anyone have anything to remove from the consent agenda for discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion.
Second.
All in favor? And that moves us to a presentation. We have the hearings of the public on agenda items. Okay. And now we have presentation and discussion.
Thank you, President Mills. So this time I will call up Ms. Jill Figuerella, who will introduce our auditors who will be providing our annual audit, external audit update to the board for their consideration of finalizing that and adopting that audit, accepting that audit.
Good evening. Good evening. Here tonight, to introduce our external auditor who has completed the audit. We've been at it since mid-July, and it has finally reached its completion. We met with the audit committee last night, who has reviewed the results of the audit, the recommendations, and a short presentation will be made on the results of the audit. And then later on in the meeting, we'll be asking the board to accept that. And I think someone from the audit committee will be joining that. So this is Rob Danielle from PKF O'Connor Davies.
Okay, well, good evening, and thank you for having me present the audit results for Hendrick Hudson Central School District again for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. Before I begin, I prepared a PowerPoint rather than go through the large 100-page audit report. But I also want to thank the superintendent. I want to thank the audit committee. They asked great questions. They understand the complexity of the school district's financial statement. Also want to thank the business office, especially Jill Figuerella. It is a lengthy process, and their assistance, as she mentioned, from July through this point was essential to get us to this point. So again, before getting into the numbers, we'll go through a quick summary overview. What are management's responsibilities? What are our responsibilities? The reports that we have issued and the opinions we have rendered. We'll go through some of the general fund, which is the main operating account that the voters approve. Some historical data, 3-year analysis on those items as well. We'll touch upon briefly on the other funds that the district operates, some debt service requirements, and then we'll close with some summary closing points. Next slide. So again, although we do prepare the financial statements, they're ultimately management's responsibility. So we make sure that they're fairly presenting the financial statements in accordance with the accounting standards, generally accepted accounting principles. We make sure that they're maintaining effective internal controls over financial reporting, not just for the audit process, but throughout the year. They have to comply with laws, regulations, provisions of contracts. Certain things need to be bid on, so we check for that. And really to provide us with all the financial records so that we can complete the audit. Next slide. So we take that information and we're charged with crunching all the numbers and rendering opinion on the financial statements taken as a whole. We've issued what is termed an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of opinion that an entity can receive. And it basically states that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the school district at a specific point in time as of June 30th, 2024, and again, in accordance with the standards. We also issue what is termed a yellow book report, which is a report on controls and compliance. Because the district does receive and expend in excess of $750,000, we also have to do what is termed a single audit. So not only do we check that, and we don't look at every grant, if you will, it is a formula, but we also check, not only do we look at the numbers, but we make sure that the grant is spent in accordance with the terms of the grant. We also have together a required communications with our management letter. And then we also audit the extra classroom activity funds and we issue a separate report. Again, if there was any fraud or allegations of fraud or illegal acts, you would know about it before we got to this point. So I'm happy to report there were no types of allegations or fraud that were uncovered. What we mean by corrected and uncorrected misstatements, anything that we proposed to record was proposed to management and included in your financial statements. We didn't pass on anything. And again, there was some turnover during the year. Business office very cooperative. We worked together, no disagreements, and to get us to this point, I think we're on a good path now. Next slide. So quickly, this is your general fund, which is, you can see there are 5 columns. This is what the voters approved sometime back in the spring of 2023. Again, if we focus on the original budget from a high level, $85.4 million of revenues, a little over $86 million in expenses, representing a shortfall, if you will, of $629,000. When you factor these transfers, really transfers to cover your principal and interest on your debt, and transfers to cover a percentage of your summer handicap program, you come down to that bracketed $3.1 million. And that's what the district utilized of its own resources to balance the budget. The big number there is what we call amount designated. The district designated almost $2.6 million to balance the current budget you're in, and thus provide a form of property tax relief. The final, you could see during the year, you could make changes to your budget if certain revenues come in or certain line items need to be changed on your expenses. Very little change. No change to your revenues, very little change to your expenses. You did now appropriate a little over $300,000 from your repair reserve to do some work and certain encumbrances. So now to balance the budget, the district was utilizing $3.4 million. So we get to the third column, which is your actual results, and you can see your actual revenues all the way to the right there came in $2.7 million better than your final budget. I will briefly touch upon those in the next slide. You also had expenditure savings of almost a little over $3.8 million. You take your revenues, subtract your expenses, and factor in your transfers, and you see that net change in fund balance of $3.7 million. You have revenues that exceeded your expenditures by $3.7 million. You're able to add that to your opening fund balance of $25 $29.4 million in the end of the year at $29.2 million. There is a slide that's all now free and clear. Certain reserves are set up, and we'll touch upon that in a minute. Next slide, please. I'm not going to look at every item here, but we try to pull out some of your major revenues that attributed to that $3.7 million surplus. If we start with the property taxes, you can see those are up about $550,000 compared to 2023, but well within the 2% tax cap. So again, the district did not exceed the tax cap, and you'll see in a later slide, they haven't exceeded the cap since this thing was enacted back in 2011. The STAR program, school tax relief reimbursement, New York State changed its formula. That's been declining over the past couple of years. And as that declines, it shifts the tax burden again from the state to the taxpayer. So something to look out for in future budgets. You have pilots. These are payments in lieu of taxes. Companies come in here and they get an incentive rather than being on the tax roll. There's an agreement made to make certain payments throughout the year, and those are your pilots, pretty consistent with 2023. What we call non-property tax distribution from the county, that's your sales tax. You can see that that's up about $92,000 compared to last year, but $627,000 better than you anticipated when the budget was developed. 1.2 million, you actually received a little over $1.8 million. Day school tuition, these are out-of-district students that utilize the Hendrick Hudson schools. You can see that was conservatively budgeted at $950,000. That came in at $2.5 million. So that's up about $86,000 compared to last year. So yes, there are certain expenses associated with that, but overall, you can say that the kids that were, I don't want to say serviced there, but the kids that utilized and HUD, it was technically profitable, even though you did incur additional salaries. The revenue offset that. Yeah, you use some money in property, which are your interest earnings. You can see that didn't reach the budget of $560,000, but it was down about $150,000. So interest rates were great last year. They've kind of leveled off a little bit. So we expect that to be pretty flat in 2025. And then two important pieces here, you have your state aid, your basic aid. You can see that's up about $5 million. There was a catch-up period in 2024 from the state for certain foundation aid. That won't be expected going forward. The district did apply for and received $1 million grant from the state, a senator grant. That's probably a one-time, as we call it. In 2024, we probably won't see that in 25. And because of the closure of Indian Point, you apply for a cessation mitigation program, and the state has kicked in some of that money to offset that closure. But as you can see, last year you received about $14.3 million, and that's declining over the next couple of years. This year, $12.5 million. So something to keep in mind as we look into the future as well. Next slide. Quickly, we just pulled out some of your expenses just to compare them to 2023. Your operation and maintenance plant, basically that was up about $260,000 compared to last year. And these are generally custodial salaries. We did note that there was additional head custodians added, and just salaries moved from different lines. You're teaching regular school, again, salary related. So obviously there are contractual commitments that was up about $600,000 or $700,000 compared to 2023. Your programs for students with disabilities also saw some increases in contractual services, about $600,000 compared to 2023. Pupil transportation also saw an increase of about $500,000 compared to 23. And again, salary related as well as certain contracts that you've entered into were up. Teachers' retirement is actually down compared to last year. That's based on the teacher salaries reported to the system times the rate. So although the rate dropped about 5%, the salaries were up, but overall it was still down about $100,000 compared to 2023. And then your debt service is down drastically, split in half, if you will. The district did finance a short-term bond anticipation note and converted it into a 15-year bond. So we should see those kind of level off over the next, few years, although you may have some different debt. And then that's really it. Your transfers out were to cover the a pay down of the short-term debt before you converted it to a bond. If we turn, you could go to the next one real quick. Thank you. This is just a pie chart. I just wanted to point out some of the drivers. The top is your revenues. And if you look, your real property taxes and your STAR program make up about 50% of the budget. And your state aid, including the New York State the Cessation Mitigation Program, that makes up about 30% of the budget. And you also have payments in lieu of taxes, the pilots, which make up about 7% of your budget. Down below is the expenditure side. You can see that your instructional costs, generally your teacher salaries, together with the employee benefits, make up over 80% of the budget. And then what we call general government support, or your administrative costs, a little over 10%, and your pupil transportation roughly about 4%. So we said you had a pretty good year, and you ended the year with $29 million in fund balance. This is a 3-year look back. You can see if we focus on the 2024 column and we look at the total, you can see that's up by the $3.7 million. Excuse me. The district did put money that's in certain reserves that we call restricted. They did establish an energy system tax stabilization reserve for $20 million. So the district can utilize this in the event that you fall short in future budgets in balancing your budget. The assigned portion, $420,000. These are open purchase orders. These are going to automatically roll into 2025 and amend that budget. And the important number there is the $3,750,000 that the district used of its own monies to balance the budget and provide a family property tax relief. And then you're at the unassigned fund balance, the $3,397,000 is roughly about 3.65% of the 2025 adopted budget. New York State limits that amount to 4%. So you're within, you're under that. Next slide. You do operate other funds. You have an active capital projects fund. As you can see, $18 million is your bonds and certain premiums that were received. So those projects are underway. There's a little bit left in the fund balance there, and that's restricted for those capital purposes. You have an active special aid fund to account for all your federal and state programs. Roughly about $1.6 million is running through that fund. These are grants outside of your normal general fund. These are expenditure driven. You incur the expense, you claim for it, and it's within a certain budget period that you get those funds. You have an active school lunch program. You can see your lunch program, your expenditures actually exceeded your revenue. So that fund balance is down to about $73,000. So it's something to look at moving forward. You have a special purpose fund to account for the extra classroom activity funds, as well as certain trusts that scholarships are made from. There's about $278,000 there. And you have a debt service fund, about almost $1.5 million that can be used to pay down debt in the future. Next slide. So this is a slide on your outstanding debt. As I said, you converted a short-term bond anticipation note into a 15-year bond. So your outstanding bonds are almost $20,460,000. You have certain finance purchase debt, which are your leases, $1.1 million, an energy performance contract, there's $425,000 left on that. And you do have a small short-term bond anticipation note for bus purchases, $1.44 million. At the bottom, we are required to report the payments for all that debt to maturity over the next 5 years, and then in increments of 5 years. And just wanted to point out, if you look all the way to the right, the total principal and interest. Next year, in 25, your payments are a little over $3 million. It drops to about 2.9. So looking at 2025, $3 million on a $93 million budget is roughly about 3%. So On this size of a budget, your debt service requirements aren't that high compared to your budget. And then I'm just gonna close, next slide. Again, the district had a good year, and that's all accredited to you folks. The board, the audit committee, the business office. As I mentioned before, you have remained within a 2% tax cap, what they call the tax levy limitation law. Again, that was enacted back in June of 2011, so we're going on 13, 14 years. So you haven't broken the cap. You are working with the state due to the closure of Indian Point to get some additional funding, to offset your property tax increases. So that's working good. It's something you need to, the district needs to apply for on an annual basis, and that's happening. You are establishing reserves, especially the energy system tax stabilization reserve that, again, you could utilize in future budgets. And why is all that important? Because it'll assist you when you do your levy. You know, you're probably in March and April, you're going to be looking at your 2026 budget adoption, and you'll have to determine what you can utilize to balance the budget. So that'll help you. You recently went out and converted to a new bond. You got a pretty good bond rating, an A+ from Standards and Poor's. That always helps you in lowering your interest cost. And just having money set aside will fund these unexpected things that come up during the year. That's it. We did have some comments on internal controls. Those were reviewed with management. There is a corrective action plan. I think some of the comments have been addressed moving forward, and there are certain pronouncements that will impact the district, one next year, and then a couple one in 26 and one in 27, and we will work with the district to make sure that those are implemented. So that's really it. A lot of information in a short time frame. Any questions?
Have a question?
Great, thank you so much. It's really great to see. I don't remember presenting this in the last couple of years. My memory doesn't, I don't remember doing this, but I think this is actually wonderful to do for the public, page by page. I know it's extra time, but I think it's well worth it. Thank you for being here and presenting this. I also want to thank our business office and our audit committee as well. So great. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the audit report as presented.
Motion to accept.
Second? Anyone second? Second? All in favor?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the corrective action presented as well.
Motion to accept the corrected action as presented.
Second? All in favor? All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you to Jill.
Yes, thank you, Jill.
Jill,
for
thank
sure.
you for your tireless work.
Yes.
As well as the staff.
Jill, thank you. She's got it. Now Jill gets to do a presentation.
So I'm not giving the presentation.
Yeah, she's just-
I'm just, we're gonna be having a presentation on the curriculum budget, and all of our principals will, our assistant superintendent for curriculum will be presenting first, or the buildings will. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, and then we'll have each of the buildings come up, building principals, and speak on their individual building budgets. So Margaret Roller will be speaking first. Thanks, Brad.
It is my pleasure to be here this evening to present my final curriculum and instruction budget to the Board of Education and my colleagues. I want to thank my fellow administrators for joining me tonight. We haven't always done this, and it's nice to see them in the audience. All right, Greg, can go to the next slide. So
Just for everyone following along at home, the presentation begins on slide 92. So just so everyone is aware where to go in here.
yes.
Sorry, thank you, Margaret.
Good idea. So we begin every presentation by reminding all of our friends about our mission in the district to ensure each student is an engaged, passionate learner who achieves his or her maximum potential and contributes to society. And certainly we take that seriously in curriculum. So starting quickly with a review of some of the accomplishments of 2024-25, and my principal colleagues will also address this in their own buildings as they present. Obviously, we had a huge ELA elementary initiative this year, and rolling out a program of this size, K-5, is a huge feat. I'd like to thank the principals for supporting it, my ELA coach, our ELA coach, Janine Rizzoli, for coaching us along, all of the teacher leaders who have played a role in helping colleagues, the pilot people. This is really a big undertaking, and I want to compliment them on their work in this very first year. K-5 report card update. So we did go back to the report card since we've had recent updates in both math and ELA, made some adjustments, tried to give parents a more detailed approach to both curricular areas. Those are ready and are being used in the report cards that will be sent home at the beginning of February. I think it's actually next week or the week after that the elementary report card will be in the portal. Elementary ELA math and tech coaches. This is the second year for ELA and math, the first year for our tech coach facilitator. These three women have done amazing work across the district. And I know I, for one, in the curriculum office, could not have accomplished as much as I did without both Janine Rizzoli and Michelle Korokowski. K-12 math review, Michelle and an outside consultant is leading that work. We're getting down to the end of our meetings. I think we wind down the beginning of March. I think the teachers have found this to be productive, looking at gaps and trying to find a better alignment where there are transitions. And we will definitely be pursuing this in the 25-26 school year, when this work will take a little bit more of a pedagogical focus through professional development. UPK expansion, I'm thrilled that we were able to, with the board's support and some nice grant money, expand the UPK program. We have 7 classrooms across the district, 5 in-house, so 3, the YMCA supports the program in BV and Furnace Woods, 3 classrooms at BV, 2 classrooms at Furnace Woods. Our other outside collaborator, Rising Star, has 2 classrooms with Hendrick Hudson children. I find this, I visit them once a month if I can get there. I find this to be an amazing experience for our young kids. I hope that as we continue, we will be able to continue to not only support it, but grow it. And we added ENL staff at elementary and also brought in a new person at the high school. I would say that they have both so far been fabulous additions. That's a small team, but a team that collaborates well, even across schools. We are working with 2 wonderful consultants out of Siena College through BOCES on our ENL standalone work. That is the time of day when kids come out for language acquisition pullout. And we are trying to tighten that up, make it more purposeful, more meaningful, and more aligned to the ELA curriculum. And we're also looking at some co-teaching experiences at secondary. We're hosting a small AIS internal review to look at our practices, our decision-making, our problem-solving skills, and the availability of interventions, making sure that the children who need remediation are receiving the appropriate intervention when they leave the room for that support. Scheduling reviews at the middle school and high school are ongoing, and I believe, I'm going to guess Lauren and Anthony might talk a little bit to this, so I won't step on that too much. And high school course offerings, we just decided we are moving that to 25-26 when Jim Rogolski will lead a high school committee to look at what is available in the region, what course offerings are available at other high schools, how is their course selection process managed. Thank you, Greg. And then looking toward next year, we are looking to continue a schedule review for K-12. Elementary will take part in that this year also. Looking towards a 25-26 adjustment. The middle school is looking at an ELA pilot. We're hoping that that can begin in the fall. We will see if that is the case. We will move to elementary trimester reporting. Right now, we provide an elementary report card in this February session and then again in June. by moving to a trimester, parents would receive a report card early December, late March, and then June. So we are, I think, with the 3 elementary principals committed to that process and now looking at calendarizing that and calendarizing any parent conferences. Universal screener change. So we have been talking about this for a little while. It happens that the new ELA program at elementary is best served by NWA maps. They talk to each other and can feed data. We went to a presentation in December. I had one of our high school teachers with me and we both were impressed by the maps presentation. We invited a representative to do a virtual call with the district last Tuesday from 3 to 4. That recording will be available as soon as she sends it to me. I will post it on the website so that parents can see it. Other people who couldn't make the meeting can see it. And I know we had a question in curriculum council the other day. I did receive a parent report, which I will redact and share so that parents can see what the parent report looks like for the MAPS program as compared to iReady. So we'll have further conversations about that and then look to make a decision probably by April, I would imagine. Elementary ELA, I find that to be a tongue twister. Elementary ELA initiative will continue into year 2. Again, this is an enormous undertaking and I'm appreciative that teachers are supporting one another as we look to provide them with additional help. Updating the new teacher induction process. So we've had for a long time, after the year 1 mentoring, there is a process that our teachers are supported through right up until the tenure decision. We'd like to update some of those asks, if you will, replace some of the coursework opportunities with some opportunities to work more closely with our coaches. K-12 Math PD continues, as I said, the high school, which is just about to adopt the arts pathway, is also looking at next year adopting the world language pathway for graduation. So those are some of the accomplishments. You'll hear a bit more when each of the principals comes up and adds to that. And I'm going to read from this because there is no way that I can see that. Okay. Okay, let's get to the numbers. So the first code that you see in this budget is the contractual code for memberships, and that includes memberships for the coaches. And you can see that there's a proposed change next year of $1,000. New below that, the 2010-400 code is a new code this year. We're being asked to track our mileage this way. So we've estimated $2,000 in that category. 2010-401 is seminars and meetings, and we've moved this around. So there's the curriculum budget has been interesting the past few years. There are some places where it's not a new expense, so that $5,000 that you see proposed for next year sat inside of another code in previous years. And working with Jill, she has asked me to take on some new codes and move things around. So you'll see some things. It doesn't mean that it's an additional cost. It means that it's just been reallocated to a different budget code. Let's go to 2010-450. Office supplies stays the same. 2010-490, the 490 codes are always BOCES. And you can see that we had a $50,000 budget in 24-25. We're reducing that by $30,000, but actually it's not a reduction, it's a movement. So it's being shifted to another code that you'll see on subsequent pages. And you can see there some of the expenses that come from 2010-490, the district membership to BOCES, Propio, which is our translation service, and miscellaneous teacher workshops are included in that $20,000 ask for 25-26. 2070 is a new code for curriculum, and so 2070-401, you'll see a notation here that this was moved from 2010-401. Again, it was in another place. We just pulled the money down and put it in a different code, and the ask for 25-26 is being reduced $3,000. Moving on to another new code, 27-401. This is for reimbursement for refreshments when we have meetings with outside consultants, when we have parent nights or anything involving parents. And there's a proposed $2,500 for that. 27403, curriculum and staff development, professional development, this is a non-BOCES code. So sometimes we do work with outside consultants that don't come through BOCES, and we need a way to pay for that. So that usually is something that would come from this code. 27490, regular school district-wide services from BOCES. You can see the first two courses are part of the new teacher work. All of the instructional leaders, 612, participate in the BOCES collegial circles. Those costs come out of here. Science 21 teacher training, miscellaneous teacher workshops are all part of this code. 2010-480. This is a textbook code. So we estimate the state funding this year will be approximately $180,000. And you'll note that in 25-26, we have the second payment for Into Reading, which is a large piece of that 390. And then aside from the Into Reading, which is about $297,000, we anticipate various textbooks that have to be renewed across the district, middle school, high school. I'm still waiting on one high school adoption from the science teachers. So that, we'll factor all of that in. It drops down slightly. 2010-490, Science 21, that is the curriculum itself. The Social Studies ELA database, which is the K-5 Social Studies program. I think we still get it K-8, honestly. Young Authors, Environmental Ed Center, EduSeer, which is a credit recovery program. And then all of the district testing costs for the 3 through 8 and the Regions programs. Nice flat data collection warehouse. And new to this code is arts and education. So if you look all the way on the right and you see that this code increased by $150,000. Remember that $30,000 I told you on the previous slide was moving? That's where it moved to. And then the arts and ed total for all 5 buildings was $120,000. So that is the increase in 2110-490. 2610-460 is a library code. That some of that does come from the state, and the district does add some money to that. And on the last page, 2610-490, that again, 490 is a BOCES code. That is all of our databases that come from BOCES and support our library systems across the district. And that brings you to the total that you see, the proposed and the change. Next page. There is a good deal of funding that filters to the curriculum department through title grants. And as we say every year, title grants are never guaranteed. We don't know how much money to the exact penny we will receive. So we show you what we've had in the past few years, and you can see the change over time. Title I is intended to support students who are at risk, whether that is behaviorally, emotionally, children who are at risk for attendance, and of course, academically. So you see things in there such as our AIS pieces, the MTSS database, professional development for teachers and for our AIS teams, and materials and supplies that would be related to any of the interventions that they work with. Title II is intended for professional development. Title III is the ENL grant, so translation services, professional development for the ENL staff, material and supplies, both for staff and for students. The after-school program that supports the middle school and the high school, the elementary students, as you will recall, all attend the after-school program at the library, so that is of no cost to the district. And Title IV, which covers a myriad of opportunities, but also limits your technology expense. We have the option of transferring this budget line, and we actually did this past year for the first time and moved it over to Title I. In closing, I thank you for our students and our teachers and providing everyone with the support they need to do this incredible work every day. And I would like to invite our amazing high school principal, Lauren Scollins, to join us.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here to present tonight. I'm excited to share a little bit about what we are working on at the high school. saw the mission. So with our budget money from this past year, one of the exciting things that our health teacher was most looking forward to was adding additional baby purchases to our health program. So we have updated babies and program for that this year. It's always exciting to see our students carrying their baby carriers to homecoming and all the other fun things around the school. Also this year, we were able to reimagine the academy and support the academy program at the high school. Always with our Project Lead the Way programs and partnerships with our local businesses, and continued our pre-COVID work with bringing our partners back into the building. So really getting local businesses a chance to come back into our school and see the engineers in our community, what our students are doing in our Project Lead the Way programs. This past year, we started the professional learning experiences on the New York State science standards, which are being adopted. Everyone will notice that our coursework next year, instead of earth science freshman year, you'll be called earth and space science. So that will be reflected in this upcoming budget, as well as there will be some new supplies needed. I know Dr. Kleinman presented a little bit about how we are working on scheduling and making sure that we are providing relevant and real courses that our students are interested in, along with our building emergency response team and increasing safety. You've been to the high school, you'll see the vestibule now has the window tinting to ensure that there is a barrier between our front and our vestibule, as well as the students who are inside the building. One of the most exciting things that we've been really working on this year at the high school is the plan pilot. That is the application process we began last year with New York State Ed, which we are really diving deep into our professional learning experiences. We are working with a team across New York to really investigate different types of learning experiences for students, performance-based assessments, and real-world experiences, very aligned to our strategic plan. So while that is in our beginning work this year, we look forward to working over the next 5 years to support that. So with the budget this year, you will notice that there is an increase in materials and supplies for science. A lot of our new science learning standards are very phenomena-based, very hands-on. Our earth and space science teachers now need stream tables and a couple of additional supplies that did increase that budget area. We are supporting our building level professional learning for our plan pilot, as well as the opportunity for teachers to engage in different styles of assessments in their classrooms, and really supporting different types of learning experiences for our students, which is always you see in that increase in materials and supplies as we are doing different types of learning. The biggest thing that we'll be focusing on is our real world connections and experiences, which is a huge part of our strategic plan, and looking at ways to increase internships and trips for our students so that they see that real world connection within the what they're learning in the school day. One of the biggest pieces to our plan pilot work has been interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary learning experiences. So humanities, bringing that science, that social studies and English together, and hopefully expanding so that maybe we even bring the arts into that and really have experiences where students see really multi experiences across curriculums. I've highlighted just a couple of high school key budget points here. Most notably, some of the changes and adjustments. And as we go through the budget process, and especially at our line by line, we see some of the money that has been moved around. Just for example, our first quote here, 45001 Gen, is our materials and supplies. The 23-24 budget was 43,000, and then 24-25 is 23, and now we are increasing just to 25, just for increase in supply, just general costs. But so though you'll notice that there are codes that have been created over the last few years, which the money is now in the right allocations, as Margaret spoke to before. One of the key things I talk about in our math budget is our materials and our supplies. And as we went through this most recent math review, our workbooks for our math program come out of that materials and supplies. So that has increased. We've been fortunate enough over the last few years to get a few extra pieces included with those workbooks. This year, they're going to be charging us. So Also, what I noticed here, these last two pieces, is our science, materials and supplies budget, as well as our science contractual budget. So next year, we do not see the need for money in our contractual budget, but that money, and then some, will be in our, materials and supplies budget, because we will be needing to purchase additional supplies for our students to be successful in science with the new learning standards. So maybe not an then some, but we are adding to the materials and supplies for next year for the high school. So with that, I'm gonna ask Mr. Giovanazzi to come on and share about that.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Good evening, everyone. So some of our program highlights at the middle school, we've really enhanced our advisory program. We're using a program called Positivity Project. Every month we have a monthly theme that we look at character strength. And we have bi-monthly advisory activities with our homeroom teachers and the students as their faculty advisors. And what they'll do is they'll take them through some activities, they'll see some videos, they'll have some questions, and it all focuses around what the character strength of the month is. This month, the character strength is bravery. We actually had our advisory today, the first one for the month. Every morning we have quotes of the day, morning announcements, they connect to the theme as well. And there's also parent activities that I've been sending on my weekly communications to parents to follow through at home as well. This also ties into our portrait of a middle school student, where we want students at the middle school to, be responsible, be respectful, be open-minded, critical thinkers, be empathetic, effective collaborators and communicators. And this portion of a middle school student is posted in every classroom and in all the common areas of the building. We've had multiple team building events this year, not only through our advisory activities. We've had a nice guest speaker come in, and we had a really nice team challenge day, the Wednesday, half day before Thanksgiving break, where all students in their homerooms with their homeroom teachers got to circulate through 4 activities. One was a trivia contest, another one was a writing what they're thankful for activity. There was some sports, dodgeball, basketball, and they did a scavenger hunt. And I don't know who was more excited, the kids or the teachers, but it really was a great team building event. The kids really enjoyed it. This year, we're really looking at our MTSS processes to make sure that we align our referral process or procedures with the district goal to meet the academic and social emotional needs of all students. The goal is to do a better job, a more effective job in identifying students that need the appropriate interventions. And we're trying to kind of mirror what the high school does so that when students move through the MTSS process, they're following the same procedures and protocols. We have created a scheduling committee this year. We've worked with our scheduling consultant. I have a team of administrators, guidance counselors, teachers from across grade levels and from across content areas. And we're really working with the consultant to look at making sure our schedule is efficient and we're meeting the efficiencies that we need to meet. We've looked at different scheduling models that was shared with us by the consultant, looking at different rotations for our electives, number of periods, that kind of thing. So we've been really analyzing our schedule and how we can improve that. In an effort to get kids to feel included in the school community, we've done monthly cultural heritage recognitions. This month is Black History Month, February. So we've been kind of decorating the main lobby. We have a big showcase there and highlighting important figures from each heritage, each background. We recognize Hispanic Heritage Month, Italian Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, and the kids have been really bringing and adding that design and highlighting in our lobby. Again, one of the goals is to make sure that all the kids feel connected to the building and feel included. Increased parent communication, not only through the parent square, but our site-based team, our PTA meetings, working with kids in town halls, so that people are being communicated to and they're up to date on what we're doing at the middle school. Like Lauren, we've done a lot of work with our bird team, with Amanda from Altera specifically. We've redesigned our evacuation routes to make it more timely to get kids out of the building. We've come up with a parent reunification plan if we ever had parents have to come to the building and reunify for whatever reason. We're in the process of looking at ordering lockdown blinds for every single classroom so that if we have to call a lockdown or go to a drill, You simply pull the blind and it drops and all the windows are blocked. So we're looking at the budget to get that. I've got some quotes from Amanda and hopefully we can move forward and do that. One new program we have in the building is a flex program. It's in conjunction with Chris Marino and the PPS department. It's a program designed to meet IEP students' needs of students that have difficulty self-regulating their emotions. So we have a psychologist full-time assigned to that program, provides counseling services, works with kids to de-escalate kids. We have a teaching assistant in there to provide academic support for students academically. Students are assigned throughout the day to the program, but they also have access if they're having difficulty, again, regulating their emotions, and they need to just take a little bit of break from some of their classes, work with the psychologist and work with the teaching assistant to get them to regulate, get them back into class. So we've been working closely with Chris and the staff in that particular program to make sure it's running effectively. I want to thank the board and the district for supporting our musical. This is the second year that I'm at the middle school, pardon me, where we brought the musical back. The kids are very excited about it. This year we've added a second performance. We have a Friday night performance and then we have a Saturday matinee. And again, more kids are involved, connected to the school, and they're very excited about actually doing 2 performances. And it gets the kids prepared for when they go to the high school to have some experience at the middle school level with, participating in the musical. So some of our additions for next year, like Lauren said, the middle school is also in the process of looking at new science standards, updating supplies, ordering materials, working collaboratively with the high school on a secondary approach to meet those standards. We're going to do continued professional development for our E&L program. Margaret spoke about that when she presented. Not only is there going to be strategies and professional development for the E&L teachers themselves, but also the teachers that service the students in their content areas. So from what I understand, so far the professional development this year has been going pretty well. The feedback from teachers involved has been positive. So we would like to continue with that. Again, I want to continue to foster a sense of student staff connection to the middle school, kind of expand on some of the team building things we're doing, expand on our advisory program, try to get some more guest speakers in, so kids really feel connected and included. We are, through our scheduling committee, I just wanted to highlight 2 more things, I'm sorry. Through our scheduling committee, we are going to look at restructuring our unified arts offerings, our elective offerings, and really taking a look to see what other middle schools in the area do. I believe Margaret was going to form a task force, if I'm not mistaken, through the curriculum council and some teachers to go and look and see what other middle schools are doing and see if we can really restructure that and make it more effective and, more effective use of time. Anti-bullying programs and guest speakers, I'd really like to try to bring something in next year to the middle school. I've been in touch with a couple of colleagues in the region, as well as the Anti-Defamation League, about how to bring a no place for hate school to the middle school. So there is an application process, there's activities that you need to do, and there's certain things you need to do to meet the criteria to be recognized as one of those schools. They were closed for this year because I only applied a couple weeks ago. I was put on a waiting list for next year, so I will make sure I continue to stay in touch and try to get that program off the ground. I've been in touch with the guest speaker to do this anti-bullying assembly, whether we could do it maybe in March, April, or the beginning of next year. So the anti-bullying thing, I'm going to try to hit full force. And if you see on the next slide, for some of the proposed increases, I apologize. Like Lauren, I just highlighted some of what I'm asking for a little bit money for. The other budget lines are the same as last year or even less than the past. On the first line here, materials and supplies for the main office, that's basically just a reallocation of another budget line. So that's where you see that money. On the second budget line, general programs, that's where I'm asking for the money to pay for the positivity project we use for advisory, and then any anti-bullying programs that I'm able to bring to the building. We are part of collegial circles in the county, so we all shoot each other emails, and I've been in communication there. We're trying to work on bringing an actual program, anti-bullying program, to the middle school. So that's where you see a little bit of an increase there. The third line for the tech contractual, we do have a project lead the way, a registration fee that brings that up a little bit. Music, you'll see an increase. We need new microphone stands and music stands for the students. We have about a 10% increase in enrollment. And those materials need to be ordered to replace an ed into the program. The next line, phys ed, every year the project adventure slides or equipment needs to be upgraded. This year, our slides need to be upgraded, so that's where you see the increase there. Project adventure is a nice fun unit during our phys ed curriculum, where kids really get to do some climbing, get to do some activities. So we want to make sure the equipment is up to date, safe, and approved. And our last budget line here, I'm just asking for a little bit more money in our co-curriculars, just to make sure we can continue to fund the musical, to keep that going. And we do have a small National Junior Honor Society fee for affiliation and reception. So again, these are just some of the proposed increases. Like I said, all the other lines are identical to last year, maybe even a little less. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mackin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how to get out of that chair. It's cold, probably.
You better not see chairs in the budget.
No, not yet. No, we're standing and moving. Good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here to present some highlights of our budget expenditures from last year and also some of our proposed expenditures for the upcoming year. I think it's really important for the community and the board to hear about programs or initiatives where their money is very well spent. And I have the pleasure of talking about our elementary math coach, Michelle Kowalski, who has been a tremendous addition to our staff. So to just tell you a little bit about Michelle and how she's approached this position, you can see here in the presentation. She is a true leader in mathematics education. She leads our data meetings and discussions. She introduces new strategies and then also helps teachers get a little bit more inspired around mathematics. As I've heard Margaret say, and as I've experienced in my last long year and 2/3 so far in the elementary world, most elementary teachers, I would say, probably lean towards being more comfortable with ELA. There's some math people out there, but I think math is always a scary, potentially a scary topic for our children, but also for our teachers. So this is something that I think has been a tremendous addition. She has done a tremendous job, and I'll get into more details about it, building more of a math community, a community around mathematics to try to make it fun and collaborative, and really trying to make it relevant, innovative, and again, just fun to kind of take that edge away from mathematics. She is super adaptable and continues to look at our data and assess it and report back to myself and also Margaret on a weekly, monthly, sometimes even daily basis, where she'll kind of come right in the room and be like, you know, almost like a Kramer kind of entrance and be like, I want to talk about math. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm really not really feeling it, but I don't have a choice. Michelle is fantastic. And then her professional leadership, I mean, again, she's led professional development sessions that she's created, that I've asked her to do. She's really just a tremendous math leader. You can see some of the programs that she has been working with on the grade level there, place value unit, multiplication and division units, and then the utilization of some tools for people to be able to access things at home, parents as well as teachers, to push out to their students. What's needs to be pointed out is all this is done from a basis of data. She is looking at data constantly, trying to point out where we might have some deficits, where we're doing really well. And that's a hard thing to do as somebody that's coming in and kind of, you know, has to talk to teachers about, hey, you know, we're not doing so well here. We need to start to change and look at things a little differently. And she was in a tough position last year, you know, and what I really appreciate about Michelle is her leadership and her ability to be resilient and keep focused on the task, which is improving instruction where we need to improve it and supporting her colleagues in that change. So she has been a tremendous hire for us. Some of the innovative, you can go to the next one, Greg. Some of the accomplishments, again, we talked about data-driven instructional decisions. She's analyzed data. We started off the year doing a community line plot activity. You'll see them still. What I find amazing is they've moved on from the first one and now have started to do new ones bi-monthly, you know, and I don't know that that was even planned for. I just think the teachers found the value there, and we did have some issues with students analyzing and creating line plots and the activities around that. So that was all data-based. And people are collaborating. So again, I think kudos to the board, kudos to Margaret and her team in planning and finding these folks. It was really a budget highlight for us. And will continue to, I think, be a really positive addition. So moving forward with Michelle, we're looking for initial strategies that have been successful. We're going to look to continue to refine. You can go to the next one, Greg. And then just sustained engagement. You know, again, kids, I think traditionally are a little afraid of math, especially when you mention fractions or long division. And we want to make sure that they find some joy in doing mathematics by making it relevant and a little less scary. So thank you, Michelle, if you're out there, and the millions of others watching across the world. Let's go to the budget, Greg, for the real excitement. Next one. I'm not going to read all this. You can thank me later. Again, new contractual expenditure for mileage. This was just shifted out of another line, as Margaret and others said. So there's an increase there. Supply and materials with the move, our supplies and materials were kind of up in the air. So last year we kind of budgeted with not really understanding what we may or may not have in all the buildings and all the little nooks and crannies. So there are some consumable items that we kind of have to have in the office, and then you'll see in the general materials line on the next page, you'll see you know, an increase there as well. The general equipment, I'm a big believer in cycling equipment and getting on a schedule, meaning furniture and things like that. Jill has helped me understand a little bit more about that process as far as what counts as equipment, what doesn't. We always haven't had a really defined structure around that. And also, you know, there, I believe, is going to be a plan more district-wide to address some of these needs. So there's a decrease there. We were able to take that out of my budget. Next page. $75,000 proposed budget in contractual expenditures. That is the A word, the Ashokan trip. I am new to the Ashokan trip. I can answer absolutely no questions on the Ashokan trip. I will be on the Ashokan trip, and you can ask Cindy and Josh about Ashokan. I really don't know that much about it. But there is some money in there to account for other field trips as well. And just some of that verbiage in there is from board policy and practice from years before. Yeah, small decrease in music contractual, small increase for teacher contractual expenditures for conferences. We can go to the next one, Greg. You know, arts and materials, again, a lot of consumables we're dealing with there. I have asked Sandy to really take a look at what we need. Go ahead.
Jim, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Please, please.
So we have joining us our fantastic cheerleading squad behind us. Ladies, I know you have a very important tournament coming up this weekend in Albany, so we want to wish you luck at that. Represent us well. We know you will. Want to know your thoughts on what we should do for tomorrow.
Noli's still gonna have practice things.
Just because you asked, there will be no school tomorrow.
All right.
But you do have to stay and watch the rest of the budget. Best of luck, ladies. Say, thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
How did they get, they were so quiet, they were like, Nimbus.
Thank you for coming to Salem Showdown on behalf of varsity.
Best of luck.
Have a good night, guys.
Sorry, Mr. McIntyre. We thought we were gonna time it perfect.
Thank you.
That's what I get for talking too much. Real quick, Additional expenditure in, again, general materials and supplies. This is for more building-wide materials. A small decrease in music materials and supplies. Greg, you can flip it. Phys ed, again, we have some scheduling constraints where we have a couple of sections running at the same time. That requires more scooters and jump ropes and different things. And also this equipment they play hard, our kids. So we got to make sure that the equipment's safe. So Mr. Kisslinger, Mr. Blassoff, Mr. Bruno are really good at making sure that they're cycling out equipment. That costs us a little money. So because of the size and what we're dealing with, we asked for a little increase there. And then our STEAM materials are, again, a small increase to just account for any anticipated consumable materials for the state tests and the investigations, and also for the general STEAM program. Next. Workbook code, there's a significant increase here. Just a little background. When we came to Frank G, there were a good amount of workbooks left over from the previous year for 4th and 5th grade. We inventoried them and were able to use them and decrease our costs for this year. We will not have that luxury this year because we ordered right to the number. So that's why you're seeing an increase there. Health services, Band-Aids, boo-boos, Bactine, whatever, apple juice, all that stuff. That's what that's for. I definitely needed to up the snack game in there, so I'm talking with the nurse about that. Next, and here's our overall. I mean, again, I think you can assign the change or the decrease to really just reallocation of money. It's not because I did a really excellent job. I mean, you can say I did a really excellent job, but it's really about just moving things around a little bit. So thank you. And I'm going to introduce Josh and Cindy. Josh and Cindy.
Thanks,
Dr. Kramer and Mr. Cobb.
Ms. Mackin, thank you also for hosting us this.
No worries.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Anytime.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight to present our budgets. Although I'm going to present the BB budget, Josh and I are going to take turns talking about the elementary programs that are in place this year. So I think he's going to start off actually with our elementary literacy.
Thanks, Cindy. Jim did a great job talking about how wonderful Ms. Karwowski is, and I'm going to talk a little about Ms. Rizzoli. So some of the things she's done as our elementary literacy coach is she's led our data meetings, helped support using the data to guide instruction. She's helped the implementation of interreading, which Margaret was talking about earlier, and helping differentiate for the diverse learners that we have at all our schools. She's helped collaborate between the buildings. Just this morning, she was on a Google Meet with a kindergarten teacher in each of the buildings to talk about modifications of upcoming assessments. She's helped include our ENL and AIS providers as well in these conversations. She supported the new database Linkit to help us analyze student progress at our data meetings. Today she was at Furnace Woods doing all 3 grades with me. And our teachers, and she's led professional development to help them with the units, plan future instruction, provided resources, integrating the programs, and she's modeled lessons. She's co-taught with staff and provided training on effective literacy instruction.
So as has already been mentioned, we are implementing Into Reading for the first time this year, K-5. And that has 2 parts. It has structured literacy, which includes the phonics and the phonemic awareness, the word work, and then the Into Reading piece, which is the read alouds, the whole group lessons, vocabulary fluency, and comprehension. So whole group lessons, small group lessons, and each classroom has a focus wall, which you'll see an example of in a minute, where they put the important pieces of each lesson, each module, for the students to refer to. So the vocabulary words are up there, the phonics skills that they're focusing on, the essential question for that module, all those things are right there in plain sight for the students to refer to as they go through the lessons each day. There's been a lot of collaborative work going on around Into Reading to make sure that the implementation has been smooth. There's monthly grade level meetings across the grade level between the two buildings, as well as building level meetings and building level planning that takes place on a regular basis. We have a coach from HMH that works with all of the grades to provide support remotely, and some on-site PD from a rep as well. We had that on our last early release day, and I believe we have it again on our next early release day. And of course, when we're doing the observations as principals, we're in the classrooms throughout the day, as well as our formal observations and providing feedback to the teachers and having conversations about how things are going with them. Slide. So here are a couple examples. We have a second grade reading lesson with the read aloud portion and discussion about the story. And then that's an example of the first grade focus wall. And the first focus wall looks different in every classroom, but it has the same essential pieces. Moving forward, so the publisher recommends that the first year you really focus on that whole group instruction and perfecting that. So that is, small group instruction is still taking place, but the teachers are really collaborating and refining that whole group instruction. So they have their focus walls in place, they're refining those routines, and they're continuing to plan collaboratively. As we move forward to year 2, they can focus more on the small group instruction and perfecting that. So utilizing the data to help differentiate instruction, and also continuing to collaborate on the center work, because while the teachers are working with the small groups, it's important that the rest of the students are engaged effectively, and that's in center work for the most part. So these are some pictures of center work in first grade on the bottom and kindergarten up on the top. Students are working independently. So at BV next year, the major thing that I'm asking for that's an addition is wipe-off tables. So the kidney-shaped wipe-off tables for every classroom. We currently have them in first grade, and they're really a great teaching tool. There's, in the pictures that you see, the one on the left is a kindergarten TA working with kids in a small group, and they each have an individual whiteboard, which is also a great teaching tool. But that's really helpful when you're doing a whole group lesson and the kids can hold it up and you get a quick glance of what they've answered. But with a small group, with the teacher or the TA sitting right there, as you can see on the right, the kids can write right on the table and the teacher can give immediate feedback and go from one student to the next without skipping a beat. And the kids think it's cool because they get to write on the table. So that's what we're looking for to improve that differentiation, that targeted instruction and feedback. Also gives the students ownership over their learning, and it's sustainable because it just gets wiped off and you're not wasting paper.
And similar to Dr. Kramer, Mr. Mackin, we want to keep upgrading those desks and chairs in a systematic cycle. And flexible seating is something we'd like to help with our differentiation, the student ownership, and better meet the diverse needs of our students.
And the BV budget. So the same budget codes that Jim shared. The first two are new. The first one is mileage and conferences and workshops, which was put elsewhere in previous budgets, and then materials and supplies specifically for the office is the second line. The equipment code down below, that would be furniture and other large expenses, which is being moved to other lines. So that's a 0 for next year. Then we have our, I'm gonna look at my paper so I can see it clearly. Contractual expenditures, so that's field trips. Again, wasn't budgeted this way in the past, so we're requesting $4,000 for that, which is an increase. Then we have professional memberships and teacher conferences. It's next. Next page. So these are the different budget lines for the specialists, special area teachers. We have art, we have music, we have phys ed, we have STEAM, and then we also have the general supplies, which is the second one from the top, the biggest piece of the budget. And those go up and down depending on the subject. Music is up quite a bit because they're requesting a particular curriculum that we're considering. So if we do decide to go with the Drums Alive curriculum, that is budgeted in case we lean in that direction. The next one is workbooks. That's the math consumables, handwriting workbooks, some response journals, classroom magazines, things like that, all the consumables. It's up a bit from last year. And then we have materials for the library and health services. So the nurse is requesting a couple of larger items. She needs a new go bag and also a new recovery couch for the students when they're when they need to spend some time with her in the nurse's office. And that's it. So you see there's a slight change, slight increase in the budget from, or decrease actually in the budget from last year. Sorry, that's a typo. Should be a -6%. And some of that is just that money has been realigned and placed in other budget items, and some of it is a decrease in what we're requesting. And of course, thank you on behalf of BB and all of the students for your continued support. It's greatly appreciated. Josh is going to finish it.
All right, thank you. Okay, and ours are gonna be fairly similar, especially to BV. The difference is the first code ending in lobby. That's for the fish tank and maintenance. That started as of 2025 in the Furnace Woods lobby. Mileage, material supplies, and equipment would all be similar. As would this page. Helps going last. Okay, and really we can just keep going because these are identical. Some are a little bit higher, some are a little bit lower. Do you want to go to the total slide, Greg, please? And there, you know, the slight increase. And finally, thank you very much on behalf of our Furnace Woods community and all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Want to say
Thank you to Dr. Waller, all of our principals. While you've probably heard me say ad nauseum that our budget is not just a balance sheet, it's a statement of our educational values. In this presentation more than others, that is truly the case, because we are showing you specifically what is directly impacting students in their buildings. Additionally, principals rarely have a very large budget to deal with. When we talk about if we have to make major cuts, it normally does not come from a building-based budget. So we really wanted tonight to show the story of each of our buildings and what they're proud of and what we're hoping to do next year. I'm going to deviate from my normal procedure here where we hold questions till the end. I want to make sure our principals can get home and make sure that they get their houses ready for anything that they may need to deal with. Specifically, they've been in the buildings for so long. So are there any questions about the building-based budgets or the curriculum-based budget this evening? Okay, principals, thank you very much for your detailed presentations and knowledge. Well done. Thank you.
Very helpful.
thank you.
So at this time, I'm going to ask Jill to come back up as the board discusses a component of the budget which came from the finance committee as a recommendation from administration to explore the use of reserves as a appropriate and best practice fiduciary matter.
Good evening. Are you gonna be able to put up that slide or no? I don't know what number slide there is.
It is number one. I have 149.
49. Yep.
So I just want to introduce what I think we will be asking on one of the propositions on the ballot this year, and that's to establish a capital reserve for the district. Capital reserve, again, is it's a savings plan. It is something that the entire community has to vote on to establish. It's not a typical reserve where we can decide as a board and as an administrative team that we need to have a reserve to cover things in our budget. This is specifically earmarking money for the use towards capital projects. And it will, in the long run, help to reduce the cost of those capital projects. So what it is a savings plan, and it can be specific or non-specific. The recommendation is that it's not specific to a particular item or items within buildings or facilities. And again, it's an opportunity to create a long-term return for taxpayers. When we go out for a capital project, those capital projects are voted on and then they're financed. This will be a gradual savings plan to put towards those projects instead of just introducing a project saying, okay, it's gonna cost, I'm just gonna throw something out there, $15 million for this, that, or the other thing. And different savings can help reduce the financing on the cost of those projects in the long run. We know that they're happening. We know that they're going to be happening. We have one in the works right now, so it isn't something we're saving for immediately. And we're not asking the public all we're asking in the proposition is to establish the reserve. We're not putting money into the reserve necessarily at any given time. It can be from leftover funds in the budget. From year to year, we all know that there are leftover monies at the end of the year. No one budgets right to the dollar. And we also can plan to put money towards it. If, like in the operations budget, we could designate, let's say, I think Anthony has, Mr. Merlini has $100,000 designated just to start it off. But technically speaking, nothing has to go in there initially. Craig, did you go to the next slide? So capital reserve is under New York State Education Law, Section 3651. The notice for the voter approval must state that the proposition will be established to create a reserve fund. The proposition that is voted upon must specify the purpose for which the fund would be established, like I mentioned earlier. The ultimate amount has to be established, the probable term, and the source from which the funds are to be obtained. The ultimate amount refers to the amount up to, so as a board, you would have to decide what you think that amount should be and what the term of that amount, how long it would take, how long we can have this reserve in effect. At the end of the term, you can establish another reserve, you could add on to the reserve, but initially when you put up the proposition, it has to state those things. I have an example there, a recommendation, a reserve up to $5 million over 10 years. Right now, our reserves are in good shape. We also know that we're facing the reduction in revenue from the Indian Point power plant closing down, and our cessation funds coming into the district as revenue going down $2.2 million every year. It's unlikely that we would get to the $5 million over 10 years. However, I think anything higher than that would be an unrealistic expectation. So we can be specific or be broad in the capital reserve proposition. Again, that's a suggested wording for the proposition. I've reviewed it with the attorney. They agree that those are, words that we should probably think about adopting if we do put up the proposition this way. It includes additions, improvements, reconstruction, and equipping of district buildings and facilities and athletic fields and tracks, including original furnishings, equipment, machinery, apparatus, appurtenances, not sure what that is, and site work, as well as incidental improvements as they relate to expenses in connection with a capital project. So that pretty much covers anything and everything we could probably think of to put into a capital project. It doesn't limit us that way to things that we, specific items. And again, how we have to name the funding source. The funding is derived from annual budgeting, like I said, directly remaining at the end of the school year, or increased by, and it can be increased by the remaining unspent budget appropriations. So initially, nothing has to be put into the fund. However, like I said, I think it would be wise from year to year to at least put a minimal amount in there to start creating a reserve that will help reduce future funding on projects. So that's what that's all about. I'm going to say that we should probably talk about what that amount is and if that's an agreeable amount, because I know that our district clerk has to create the proposition. She has to get the wording. They have to have it printed. I would ask that tonight, if you can, decide on what that amount and what that time period should be.
We can discuss the amount and the time period, and then we have to bring the draft the proposition to put in front of the board again.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll go ahead and take a look at projections just in our normal iterations, and we'll save the amount and proposition discussion for after the presentation. So Jill, if you want to just take us quickly through any changes that might have occurred to our projections.
Okay, so that slide is not here. We can talk about, I didn't add it to the slides that we had. I can. Actually, it should be updated. Oh, you know what? This is just a screenshot of it.
So we received new information just recently,
Right.
which we'll discuss in the discussion portion of the presentation. And then Jill can update the projections that we provide at the next board meeting through the finance committee. So
Okay, so do you want to talk about the tax cap, or no? We'll
yes,
wait
let's just go through.
to the discussions?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's okay. We'll get there in 2 seconds if you want to step there. Greg, if you want to go to the next slide, these next slides are just perfunctory reminders. Here's our budget development calendar. We look at the next slide, a reminder about our budget vote. May 20th of 2025. And then if we need to go to a contingent budget, the next slide shows those contingent budget rules. And so board, the next slide that we'll go to shows our current budget parameters as we've left from our last presentation. This is what your administrative team has been working within to build the superintendent's budget. And then finally, we move on to our discussion section. So members of the board, thank you for, that was a long presentation, I know, but I think hopefully it laid out the building and curricular aspects of our budget in a manner that you were able to digest and continue this discussion. So we asked you about any questions you have from our presentation. If there are any of those you want to revisit, we can do that at this time, but also we want to look at those parameters, see if there's anything we want to revisit, see if there's anything we need to adjust or update. We also have to discuss if it's the sense of the board to move forward with a capital reserve proposition. And I've updated the slide deck, so when we update it live, you'll see these come up. And the amount of what we would put in that capital reserve update. Jill has just recently received updated estimated figures related to our tax cap. So we look at a possible tax cap at this point in time with the numbers that we have of allowable levy increase from to 4.58%. Our current estimated budget, which is everything that you've seen presented, other than a finalized increase or decrease to staffing numbers, is a budget to budget increase of 1.92%. But that is with the use of approximately $5.2 million in fund balance. We cannot calculate the tax rate at this time. So on the table, there are three main questions. Anything we want to revisit in terms of budget parameters? Do we want to move forward with the establishment of a capital reserve through a budget ballot proposition? And the amount of fund balance that we are using right now to have a 1.92% budget to budget increase, is that an acceptable amount of fund balance, or do we want to lower that? This is the time of night that I always hit you with very difficult questions.
Again, no, this is just a discussion. This
Yes.
isn't the establishing an amount to use in the budget. And again, we'll discuss it further at finance committee. I think just having received our final statistic or amount that we needed to complete the tax cap calculation. This is where we just got that information yesterday, the final pilot amount that I could use towards the calculation. So, you know, what's that?
What's the number?
4.58.
So right now, the budget, the levy to levy would be 4.58%. That's the allowable cap. But that is with a, so that is $54.5 million. Again, a $2.3 million levy increase over last year. Again, but that would be a 4.58% levy increase, not tax rate increase. So the tax rate is established after we know what the assessed values are in the entire town. When we come back to the next meeting, and I'd like to discuss it with the finance committee on Tuesday when we have our meeting, is we'll play it out based on the assessed values that we had received in the prior year, because that's all we had to use right now. We don't have any new final assessed values.
The increased amount that we're allowed to raise without the supermajority, right? That means the
Correct.
simple majority. That's based on the tax levy amount.
Yes,
So that's what we know now is 4.58%.
yes,
So regardless of what the assessed value component becomes, it's not that it's irrelevant. What I'm saying is for our conversation, we already know the final answer. 4.58 is what we can go up to not need supermajority and stay inside that
Correct.
particular budget parameter. Okay.
Current, that could change, but that's the number that we have.
That's we don't have the state aid.
so I do have the state aid, but they're not final, right? So we don't have final building aid numbers. Building aid numbers can make this number change.
And do we anticipate the budget, the building aid numbers to be?
They may be slightly higher.
Okay,
Based on the fact that we're gonna be filing the final cost reports for the project that ended last year.
yeah,
So that aid will start to flow to us next year, but we don't have that projection yet. It'll only be the second half of next year, so it's not gonna be a big change.
the most recent information we have is reflected outside of that number you said is not currently here, is already reflected in this, so we know the state aid to the extent that it is most. of it
That's
is-
already being.
Sorry if I'm behind a little bit.
No, you're fine. No, it's good. We need to reiterate it and talk through it. So, I mean, this is a large chunk of fund balance that we're talking about using, $5.2 million. This year, we have appropriated in our budget $3.7 million. We had 2.5 the year before. We didn't use the 2.5. You heard that in an earlier conversation. I don't know that we would need to go to the 5.2, but then it would cause us to go over the cap, right? If we were to push it into the tax levy instead. What I'm hoping for, a little bit further on along as we go, is maybe projecting different revenues is slightly different. I think I can take a closer look at maybe interest earnings. I'm worried about that right now. I think everybody is, and where that's going. I mean, everything's a little bit, economically volatile right now. The sales tax, I saw that, when Rob was giving his presentation, it did go up to 1.8 million, and the projection was a little low. Right now, it's at 1.5. Again, are people gonna be spending more money next year? You know, we don't know that, given the economy or the government and what's going on there. So I don't know, that these projections are way off or anything like that. I feel like they're pretty aligned with what we're gonna see at the end, but I think, again, you need to look at the use of fund balance and realize that that's a large use of fund balance.
Do we have the new projection sheet? Because the one from here is.
You're shared if you're on the finance committee, correct?
Yeah.
So you're shared on that particular sheet. I don't have it posted on the presentation. I'll add it to the presentation.
So I think one of my biggest concerns is using $5.2 million this year, when we know that in 2030, we're gonna need that money when the cessation fund runs out. So I think we all have to think about that in the long-term longevity of just making sure that our district survives when that cessation fund starts to go away and with large amounts instead of what are we getting, 12 million this year?
Right.
2030, there's gonna be almost nothing there. So I think using that money now.
We're actually we got 12 million last year, 12.6. We're getting 10.6 this year, and we're getting 8.6 next year.
It's 2 million less per year as we go.
Correct, and that
Continue to go down.
that really compounds it, because you have to remember, we lost the 2.2 every year. So every year you're losing 2.2, next year you're losing 4.4, and so forth. The other, so we're about $1.5 million off of what we used or what we projected to use this year as appropriated fund balance. I would say we need to take a hard look at what we're budgeting for, salary and staff wise, which we haven't gotten to that discussion yet as part of the finance committee. And I'm sorry, Charlie, you have a question?
I do. Can you do me a small favor. Can we add the fund balance from a projection standpoint, not what we're gonna use, but what was have left? Because when I look at this sheet, I'm not on finance, and so I have no idea what the fund balance.
Right,
remaining
I'll
would
add
be.
this slide to that, and it has all of that
Yeah,
information on
no,
there.
I'm asking you live to do something that I
Oh,
know
okay.
you can't do now. I'm just in the future, if that could be something that we have there, it may help minimize some questions.
The amount left
Gotcha.
over from the 29 that we have, we would be paying.
Yeah, so we
five.
know we know we have 29. Like
Right.
starting this year left now that we completed the audit, but
Right.
what it doesn't tell me is when I look at the projected fund balance usage that's on this sheet now.
Right.
I don't know what the remaining fund balance will be
Right.
at the end of
Year to
2031.
year, correct.
And I think
This,
that would
this
be
sheet
helpful.
has it on there and I'll share that with everybody. Is
This sheet you have.
that
not
I'm
the sheet
looking
I-
at
Oh, yeah,
right
okay,
now.
you're not looking at the presentation. Okay.
No, it's on, it'll be added to the presentation.
Cool, thank you so much.
Okay.
And also,
It's
Jill, we
quite
don't have,
large, so it's gonna be
Yeah.
hard to see anyway. Yeah, I'm sorry.
my other question was, we don't have any of the retirements factored into.
Correct.
Okay.
So on the sheet that I'm looking at here. It says, so. It has this blue, can you go back to that for a minute, just so that you can just
So-
totally tell me not to look at it if it doesn't. make
This one? Yeah.
Look ahead, financial projection.
Yeah, so this is from the last time.
Okay, that's fine, but that says that. That says that we're gonna be using in that example, $5.9 million for this year of the fund balance?
Right, that was one of the slides. There's another one after this.
It's not.
Oh, it's not there anymore.
Oh, I mean, it's been created after this, or it's available now? Okay,
These projections, we did not update because we did not have the information that we just shared with you
okay.
on the slide in
So
time.
then I can't talk about the budget tonight, like in that regard, because I don't have any information that's relevant to the conversation, and that's okay. But how can I talk about something when I don't know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean, I
can
can
ask
share
questions.
it with Greg now and he could probably display it on the screen so that. I just don't know if you can even see it from there.
No, we're not gonna be able to see it.
Yeah.
So if I share this with you now, you could look at it now. Oh, you don't have your computer. I'm sorry.
That's okay, I can look, I can get up and move, it's all good.
Well, Jeremy, we have a seat right there for you.
Okay, awesome. I'm not-
Oh, great, you're already shared on it, actually.
Jill, I have it also.
What's the name of it, Jill?
With you, remember?
I'm sorry.
What's the name of it?
Oh, it's called Budget Projection 2023 to 2026.
Who else needs it?
We all need it.
Okay. So I have Tamika, Stephanie, Mike, Corey. Carmen, Erica.
Sure. That's that for you to share.
What?
I guess it's gonna request for you to share. I requested to share.
Okay. Moment of silence. Okay, so I can't control it though, so. It's gonna be hard to, I guess I could get up there.
So Jill, projected fund balance is on line, row 24.
Yeah, row 24.
And anything in green would be.
Green is what the current projections are for 25, 26. The row going down, green, and then to the right where the notes are, kind of just explains it a little bit. So.
Where is the fund balance?
At the bottom.
So I see the 24, but where does it tell me what the fund?
Go down to the bottom, Greg. Keep going.
Oh, I
Keep
see,
going.
further down.
Keep
Bottom.
going. Right. So we have money, don't forget, we have interest earnings coming in, we have other things happening, so this is a hopeful number for the following year. Yeah,
So
so
we
I'm
plan to start next year plus or minus 31 million.
great at the moment.
Okay, so then can you scroll to the right?
Great at the moment today.
If you scroll to the right. based
This
on these
gives you
projections.
future years, yeah.
So,
It's gonna go down.
yeah, but it's going down to $23 million.
Well, it all depends on what your budget is, right? So
But your
I'm
budget, you're assuming some.
some
reasonable-
increases, yeah.
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 I mean, I think that's a much different picture, right? Than even when, am I crazy? When we talked about this with Don Hoffman a year and a few months ago, this number at the end of 2031 was like, no, I don't even think it was $1 million.
So
It was not.
I think that's a testament to the district.
I mean, this is an
Yeah,
entire
putting fund balance away.
12 months ago, one that is not alarming at all relative to what we saw.
Not as alarming.
Not as-
Okay?
Well, it's not, yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's not, I
Go
mean,
scroll
Don
on a little.
Hoffman's presentation showed that we would have, if I remember correctly, from December, it was something like $23 million is what we were gonna have left. And then we were supposed to use the $3.2 million for this year's budget, which we ended up not using at the end of the school year from last year, which gave us a surplus. And that, along with Senator Harkin's additional $1 million, we ended up getting more state aid than we projected. So we've been very fortunate so far to get extra dollars that have been coming in, but from this point on, once we start taking the money out, we're just gonna deplete what we have. We're
But
not,
what's gonna happen as a result is you're gonna keep on increasing the tax levy because
Yeah.
that's how you're gonna make it
I'm
up.
just trying to understand that this is a totally, and again, I'm looking at this in 5 seconds.
Right, but you will be able to do that if you, so when your tax cap renews every year, you always start with your calculation with the prior year's tax levy.
Right.
So you're replacing the revenue you're losing with tax dollars. So it's coming from your community and it's putting it back in.
So that's what Don showed us, but at the end of the cessation fund, we were down to no fund balance. Like now, this is a totally different picture than the one that we looked at from in. We don't need to look at it now. I'll pull it up for that.
You're gonna be using it, you're gonna be replacing it, you're gonna be getting some new revenue through interest earnings. There's a lot of different moving parts, right?
So I just wanna just ask a question or maybe a clarifying point. So we were over from last year's budget by how much? We had a
So
surplus.
We had a
3.9,
we had a 3.9% surplus.
increase in your fund balance, just go
Dollars.
there, yeah. $3.9 million,
Yes, we had $3.9 million
increase in your fund balance.
increase, yes.
I'm sorry,
I'm
you
trying
have
to,
a 4% fund balance right now, which you moved 20 million into the reserve, right?
I got that. That's how I'm talking.
Okay,
Every single year, at the end of our audit, we have money remaining. That was the whole plan from the beginning of this, before any of us were on the board, 2017.
4%.
That's been the plan. So what we were doing was we're guessing, every year the boards prior to us, we're guessing and hoping that at the end we'd have leftover funds, right, that we didn't spend.
So if we take out 5, we can maybe put back in some.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. So we're gonna take out 5. So this is where I'm struggling. I'm struggling with, I don't see how we go over the tax cap and ask our community for more. I think we should always look at as close as we possibly can to getting our expenses down as low as possible. I think that's what we all are aiming for. But we can't go over the tax cap and take 4 or 5 million out of reserves that we've been taking, like almost not overtaxing, but overestimating every year. Like we need to be cognizant of that because that's been the plan. And I think that we're in much better shape, like Jeremy said, than we thought we were.
This represents a $5 million use of fund balance this year and still.
but so
ending
let me make an
Yeah,
honest
yes.
statement. So every year we have to inject $2.2 million to get to where we were the year
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So you already know that out of the 5.2, you're gonna be using 2.2. Maybe this year we didn't have to use the fund balance that was projected to be used because you don't have that much dropping off.
Mhm.
It's early on in the process, right? But that is, you're gonna be digging into that for sure. And then it's going to compound the following year and you're gonna need to use $4.4
Yeah.
million. So it isn't like this year where we plan to use 3.7, but 2.5, but we really didn't have to use it yet, right? Because all along, they've probably been over budgeting quite a little bit to try and help
It was
build
to
up the
smooth out
fund
the approach,
balance.
so you
Yeah,
didn't have
right.
peaks and troughs. It
So
was a smoothing
you're
approach.
gonna, that's going to
Which is
become
public.
less available to do, right? So.
But there are also other ways, like we should be thinking about other ways than dipping into the fund balance to make the difference.
So another way is to start cutting expenses
Right.
and that,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what I'm
cutting
saying
staff and
is-
cutting.
that's what
I'm
I'm
saying,
saying.
you don't wanna do that.
Right,
either,
and
so.
maximizing aid, I know you were working with that company that.
Yeah, you're not talking, that's making up old aid that we were supposed to get. I
That's
mean,
not
you're not gonna
applicable.
be like, there's not gonna be a windfall
Yeah.
of money coming in.
So I think in order for us to have a complete conversation about this, we need to see what the fund balance looks like as we go down to 2030.
Yeah.
If we're gonna take an approach of, we're gonna use
It's
five
weird, but
point
it's
two
gonna
million
keep
dollars.
changing a little bit.
Correct,
over
because-
the next few weeks, over
Right.
the next month,
Right.
right?
You know, because if you
No,
look at
not
this, if you
significant.
look at this, for instance, 26, 27, we're supposed to use $6 million. 27 to 28, we're supposed to use $6.5 million. That's $12 million already, and we're only in 28, and we're not even at 2030 yet, when we only get.
Can we
Almost
freeze?
nothing.
Yeah, but every year, every year historically now, we have left over.
We've been having leftovers though, because we've been getting additional state aid that in the projections, if you look at Enrique's projections, every year we've been getting more than he's
Because,
projected.
yes, and in 2017, I was sitting in this room right here, and he explained to all of us the wealth ratio. We should see more state aid each year because of our wealth ratio. It's never guaranteed, right? Well, I guess what I'm saying is, we're gonna, if we. This is where we come in. And I hear you're uncomfortable, and I get it, we're gonna have no money, all these things we knew, because we lost $25 million, and it's up to us to figure that out. But here, this is what I'm trying, we have to decide as a board what we're doing here. Are we going to propose that we go above the tax cap, right? Or do we wanna propose that? To the, what's the solution for this?
Point of privilege.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, the district is not recommending, through the superintendent's budget to pierce the cap. We are recommending that we have a 4.58% cap that we can work within. What is on the table right now is the amount of fund balance we use or not use to tell us how much we should trim from the proposed
Okay,
superintendent's
so
budget.
what is the number what number would we be more comfortable with? Because we're looking at projections that this goes up
Correct.
every year.
So the district feels comfortable recommending a 3.7 million use of fund balance, which was similar to what we had proposed for last year.
Yep.
That would require us to do a little bit of trimming of our program budget, which we do not have any of the retirements, any possible savings through attrition from the retirement incentive, which we could look to make up some funding, also some minor programmatic shifts that we've worked with some of our buildings on.
Yeah.
We feel confident that we could present that to you where we preserve the majority of programs.
That's right.
And also we do not use more than $3.7 million of fund
Okay,
balance.
so we are having a conversation that we don't have to have, because at the end of this, on March 15th, when we get to our line by line, we're gonna end up where.
We're
we
gonna
need to-
still be having this
Yeah,
conversation.
but we're gonna be closer to where we need to be.
Right.
Yes, oh,
And-
absolutely.
Okay.
This is those
But this is
minor.
all food for thought, I think it's important that we have the conversation, everybody starts thinking about it, we're not having it on the last 2 weeks before we have to make a decision.
This
You
is
know.
fine.
Remember back to December where we first started having this conversation. We said we would sometimes come to you with minor adjustments or major adjustments. We're in one of those fine tuning portions right now. And the sense of the board to say, we're comfortable with what we see as the tax cap of 4.58, knowing that we do not want to pierce that as a current parameter.
Right.
Knowing that the district can make some budget cuts, and also apply less fund balance than projected right now. We can still do something that does not impact taxpayers to a great extent or impact student program to a great extent.
Okay, that sounds great.
Really quickly, that's kind of, thank you, Michael, for that. I'm scrolling over on your sheet, Jill, to like line 24, and it shows like the following years, it's 7 million, then it's 9 million, then it's 11 million, then it's $13 million from the fund balance. So I think we need to have we need to figure out.
Right, well, I'll go through it at some point and tell you.
Yeah,
I mean, I
because-
can go into each line and tell you what goes into each one, you know, to get to the number that I got to in those scenarios.
So the sheet that Jill has prepared has been based also on now a more accurate closing of the books this year.
Right.
That allows us to do further and more fine-tuned projections.
Right, so,
So let's just keep an open mind, we'll keep on going over it and.
Thank you so much.
all right, and then, so then basically what we have to do is back to the original slides, where decide on the, so we can write a proposition. Present to the public, we have to decide on the,
Yes, on the capital reason.
okay, so I think we all agree that we should put it out there and establish it. I think we're all, I don't want to speak for everybody, but is there anyone that thinks that we should not establish a capital reserve or propose it to the community? Okay, so we're all there. You have agreement. We don't have to vote on that, do we, Carmen? That we're all in agreement that we should.
You're gonna vote on the proposition.
Okay, so we're there. And you're asking us to,
Establish a limit that it can go up to and the amount of years that it can remain in.
and you're recommending 5 million for 10 years.
And you could fund that at any time during the 10 years. You could start it with $1.
Yep, and you can leave it at $1 for 10 years. You know, I'm saying that's not the goal, but obviously it doesn't have to be added to, it doesn't, and to take the money out of it, though, this is what you should keep in mind, is that it has to be voted on to remove it from there.
Right.
Has
From
to
the
be,
public or from the board?
yes, no, not from
So
the
you-
board.
So you
Public
can't
vote.
use it until the next year's
Correct.
vote to unlock it for the following.
Right, so think about but you're not putting an amount in there, even if we say, you know, the 5 million's not going in there, you're building it as you go.
Yep.
So if you feel that at some point you don't want to add to it because you feel like you would need to access it, you don't want to put that, you know, that amount in.
And do we have to be very specific in what is?
The language that I have there would be the language that we would use in the proposition.
Okay.
That's been reviewed by the attorneys
Okay.
and just as a reminder for the board, I know it's been a long night. These reserves are allowable and audited financial vehicles that allow the school district to have money on hand for the rainy day that is always that always could come. School districts aren't like private sector companies where they can raise money. We have to budget a year ahead of time. So that's a key thing. If somebody wants something for next year, we have to budget for it this year. We can't just come up with the money the day that you need it. So these reserves give flexibility while being transparent to the taxpayers and providing you the financial oversight that you're authorized to do to make sure that the funds are being used appropriately.
And we're also gaining interest on the money that sits there, so we're actually benefiting in that way as well too for the district.
Does the money that grows via interest in that fund remain in the fund only?
Remains in the reserve, yes.
In that reserve?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So board, we truly appreciate your guidance as we work through these complicated questions to help present a budget that you can feel confident adopting. Jill, thank you to you and your team for the detail, for coming prepared for this discussion. And that ends our budget discussion for this evening. At our next meeting, we will be presenting another budget work session, particularly in the areas of safety and security and our human resources department. That's not a staffing discussion, it's just the budget that the human resources department utilizes. And that'll be at Buchanan Verplank Elementary School.
All right, well, now it's going back to you for now for the superintendent's update.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I will start off this evening with some of the welcome news for some of our sailors, not for me. I did announce, and hopefully you did receive, that we will be closed pending inclement weather. I do not like closing when there's not snow on the ground. We just feel that with the timing of this event, even with a delay, it would be difficult to bring students in. We do have regional snow calls. And that was the concern of a lot of our colleagues in the region. I just want to let you know that we exist
to educate our students, and their safety is paramount, but also the safety of our staff. So if we were to bring in a staff to open up schools on a 2-hour delay, that means we would be asking staff to travel through some pretty dangerous conditions that are expected as well too. And on a similar note, even with the snow day call tomorrow, I do want to give recognition to our buildings and grounds crew who will have to come in and get the buildings ready for the next day. So we thank them. They don't get the day off. Our cabinet doesn't get the day off either because we do have interviews tomorrow for Dr. Ruller's replacement. You don't have to come, Dr. Ruller. So but we will be conducting those interviews as well. And I know Dr. Garcia will speak to that in his report. As you may recall, we do have an upcoming early release day that we will be utilizing. When I canceled school for students on December 16th, 2024, that was originally a half day for students and a scheduled day for staff professional learning. Made that decision because of the timing of the winter event. If we had implemented a 2-hour delay, students would have attended school for only a very short period of time before being dismissed again. However, that day remained a work day for our staff, and to prevent any potential discrepancy between required student attendance days and staff contractual work days, I'm going to be making a retroactive adjustment to the calendar. I'm authorized to do this. Specifically, December 16th will be designated as our final superintendent's conference day of the school year, which was originally scheduled for March 17th, 2025. We will now change March 17th to an early release day for students while remaining a full contractual day for staff. So parents, March 17th will be an early release day. And I appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Next Tuesday, February 11th, Blue Mountain Middle School will be utilized for a special election within our county. Want to let the community know and the board know that our facilities has worked with the county the county clerk to make sure that we have additional security on hand for our staff and students because our students will be in the building. I do want to remind our community as they participate in and demonstrate to our students the civic duty of voting or the civic responsibility of voting, that we do so with proper decorum because our students will be watching how we behave as we enter and exit the schools. We also want to remind people there is not electioneering allowed within 100 yards of the polling site, 100 feet within the polling site. So we do want to make sure that we honor that as well. On Monday, the 3rd, this past Monday, I had held a town hall meeting to discuss with our community some concerns about how federal actions might impact our local school district. As we mentioned there, the district is closely monitoring federal education policy changes, and the district remains committed for advocating for all students. Nearly every aspect of the federal government is in a state of transition as a new administration assumes its role there. This is especially true when it comes to education and education-related policies. I want to assure you that we are keeping close eye on that situation through professional organizations, direct advocacy, and we will continue to advocate for all of Hendrick Hudson students and all of New York students. And I do recognize that this is an uncertain time for many members of our community. Our district remains steadfast in ensuring that every student, regardless of status, language proficiency, or housing situation, has access to a free, safe, and high-quality public education. This is not just unique to this time period as educators. Every educator in this district has a moral and legal obligation to that foundation of our work. And so you may see schools coming out with statements similar to mine because this is our day-to-day operation. While this may be an upheaval in many of our students' lives, every day as educators, we come to this district supporting students in whatever particular struggle they may be going through so that they feel able and are able to access the instructional environment that we place before them. The purpose of the town hall was to share a general overview of how we may be impacted by 3 recent developments, which included concerns about how law enforcement interacts with our school district, concerns about federal funding freezes, concerns about executive orders as well. So I do want to, I'm a history teacher by trade and recovering social studies teacher, so I do beg your pardon while I dive into this. The US Constitution contains no mention of education. With the federal government limited those powers either expressly stated or implied in the Constitution, the federal government's role in public education is secondary to that of the states. Power over public education is an essential attribute of state sovereignty, as that of the power to tax or to provide general welfare to the state's citizens. Furthermore, the New York State Constitution states that the legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a system of free common schools wherein all the children of the state may be educated. So as a school district, we follow not only the New York State Constitution, but also the federal Constitution, but also the New York State Constitution and our local policies and state regulations. Among those include our mission statement, where we reaffirm our belief and commitment to create a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community. Additionally, we as a school district have non-discrimination and equal opportunity policies and policies that foster our commitment to diversity, inclusion, and protection of our students while they are in our care. And our first job as educators, and that of every educator in this district, is to return your children the way you brought them to us, if not better. And we always strive to bring them back to you better. So with respect to interactions with law enforcement, we value the relationship we have with law enforcement, with our law enforcement partners. We work collaboratively and consistently with our local, state, and county law enforcement to keep our students, staff, and property safe. We build a sense of community by having our students interact with law enforcement through programs such as DARE, our SROs, and community policing program. This ensures that our law enforcement individuals know our students and our students know them. Law enforcement may enter a school to remove a student only if they have a warrant for the arrest of a student or other court order authorizing the student's removal, or if a crime has been committed on school premises. Students cannot be removed from schools for questioning without parental consent. Law enforcement cannot interrogate students on school grounds without parental consent unless a crime has been committed on school grounds, and school personnel are not authorized to provide the required consent to question a student. If a warrant or other document is presented, administrators will be informed that the said document must be presented to the office of the superintendent for review, and law enforcement will not be granted access during that review, and administrators are directed to await further instructions. A proper warrant is a warrant issued and signed by a judge and includes the scope and action of the warrant. The judge's signature will be located at the bottom of a warrant, and school districts are required to honor only judicial warrants, not administrative warrants, which are signed by government agency officials. And again, this plays into the fact that all of our students, regardless of status, language proficiency, or housing situation, have a fundamental right to free public education. With results to some of the executive orders that are issued, we really won't know the impact of executive orders issued by the Department of Education or other agencies until guidance is actually issued by those agencies that are impacted by those. In many cases, that will not happen for 90 or 120 days. Recently, we met last week with our legal counsel to review many of the executive orders that at that time were coming to fruition. Some of the recent executive orders were discussed with our attorneys, and that they don't see at this time how those executive orders will impact our school district or any specific program that may be federally funded. We are awaiting guidance, and we will continue to support students while we await that. With respect specifically to the funding freezes that have been and the announced dissolution of the Federal Department of Education, we do not feel that the freeze will impact our school district. While it's not the same funding, if you read the orders associated in the freeze, it does not impact financial aid for our students. It's not going to impact Title I funding, which we do access, and it will not impact IDEA funding. Additionally, 2 federal courts have blocked that freeze, and in a memo that has provided some guidance to us, New York State Education Department clarified that IDEA funds and Title I funds will not be impacted, that funding freeze specifically targeted discretionary grants with the Department of Education. Some outcomes of that town hall will have us continuing to explore continued partnerships with our neighboring districts for advocacy, looking at providing resources on our website, and continued communication and partnering with community partners. I will be attending an event at the Hendrick Hudson Free Library next week, where a group of community members with specific concerns has asked me to speak, and we look forward to continuing to update you as we receive information. This week is National School Counseling Week. Speaking of those individuals who support some of our students as they navigate some of the difficulties and growth that they're going through, this week we recognize National School Counseling Week and celebrate the incredible contributions of our school counselors. Your dedication to guiding, supporting, and empowering our students is invaluable. Whether helping them navigate challenges, set goals for their pathway, or discover new opportunities, our counselors play a vital role in the growth and success of our students. I'm very pleased with the commitment of our counselors to the well-being and future plans of our students, and it does not go unnoticed. And I'm truly grateful for all the work that they do and want to thank them for making a lasting difference in the lives of our students and our school community. There are no questions at this time requiring follow-up. I'm going to tell my kids to go to bed. I want to tell my son, I'm sorry I kept your skates in my car, but that means I was able to run them over to you at Bear Mountain and hope you had a good practice. And at this time, I'll now ask Dr. Stephen Garcia, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Leadership Development, to provide his update to the Board of Education.
Sure, and Mr. Trump, your kids should already be in bed, just like me.
From your words to their
Yes,
sleepy eyes, they only have a 2-hour delay tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So is my wife. This week has been busy for us as we have been interviewing many candidates for the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction position. We were joined by, of course, Mr. Trombley, beneath Joy, and also Mr. Chris Moreno. And we also want to thank the Hendrick Hudson Library for hosting us. We formed our questions based around the feedback that we received from all the stakeholder groups that we did in December. And just some themes that emerged that we are really asking and probing the candidates. They revolve around a few themes that I'll just mention. We're not all the questions, but it's similar to what has been shared by the stakeholders. 1, consistency, collaboration, alignment through the school system. 2, defining and promoting innovation. 3, implementing and assessing curricular instructional initiatives. 4, engaging and empowering all stakeholders. 5, highly effective classroom instructional practice. And 6, lifelong learning. So it's really, I think, been a great exercise for us to really find that fit for the school district. But also what's really important is that when candidates do come to our school district to meet us, that they are also interviewing the school district. And the questions we ask and the reactions we have and the attention and the listening that we provide is really important feedback for the candidates to see about what we expect of all our learners and leaders here in the district. So if we continue that again tomorrow, we actually go virtual, which will be interesting, but that's fine. And then again on Friday morning. So the next step would be to invite a certain number of candidates to meet with the stakeholder group of administrators, teachers, parents, and students. Afterwards, when we get the feedback from that group, Mr. Trombley will select some candidates to join us again as a cabinet to spend more than just a half-hour screening interview, but at least an hour to kind of really drill down into their work and whether they see that, whether the candidates are a good match for the district. Sometime in late April or early May, Ms. Trombley will be recommending a few candidates to meet with the Board of Education. The goal is to appoint in May, probably after the budget vote, and then we want to start no later than July 1. So it is an aggressive time frame, but I know that there's some really good candidates out there. In terms of the other positions that we're looking to fill for the athletic director position, that's been posted. And as you know, that they can apply until March 16th. I was going to schedule some stakeholder groups past few weeks. We're a little caught up in some other things, so we're going to do that after February break, and we'll make sure that the community is well aware when we're going to have the community stakeholder group sessions for the AD position, get feedback, similar to what we did for this position as well. Just want to also thank, totally unrelated, the board for approving the rate for clerical subs. It's something which I'm not sure if the district had in the past. I was told yes, but maybe not as formal. We do have some clerical staff who may be out for a week or a few weeks, days here and there. And we need to make sure that we have some backup to fill those important roles in the district. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Dr. Ruller and Ms. Figueroa are excused from their reports tonight, so. So I'll ask Ms. Vanita Joy, our Executive Director for Technology and Innovation, to come to the podium and provide her update.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of updates for tonight. The
Steve has been tied us down at the library all week, so. One update is, as I mentioned before, we are in the transitioning from our edutech, our technology service, to managed IT through the Lyric. So first step is really moving our help desk system. So we've been working and designing that help desk system. We're at a good place to now transition. When next week by Friday, we will be moving to a new help desk system. We will be sending out an email to the faculty, letting them know they don't have to redo any of the help desk that's currently in the system. Moving forward, we'll be using the new system when they come back from the break. Also, that would apply to the parents. Currently, we have a help desk system for parents to submit tickets. This would be also changing, so we'll put that in the newsletter that's gonna go out next week. The other thing I wanted to talk about was last week, I talked about a Google announcement that was made about the Google additional services and the Adlo 2D. What we have done since then is email went out to the staff, newsletter, it was included in the parent newsletter last week about the change. I met with all the tech coaches and the STEAM teachers and our technology facilitator to let them know what's going on, how they can support the staff. Shared information, Google Slides, basically screencastify videos and slides that basically shows how you can actually still use the resources for the students, like embedding the YouTube videos, things like that. We're actually putting together a drop-in session for the teachers because I'm getting all the emails. When you send out an email, they reply back to the email. So I'm getting a lot of emails from teachers saying like, can you take a look at the lesson plan? And, you know, is my link going to be working? So in order to facilitate that, I asked Nikki Stabela, our technology facilitator, to do some drop-in sessions. So all next week. And when we come back from the winter break, she's going to be doing drop-in sessions where teachers can just drop in anytime during the day to ask questions, take a look at their materials. So that's going to be facilitated. We also did the announcement at the faculty meeting because not everybody read my email. So we did do a faculty announcement, and also middle school, we're meeting with the team leaders on this. Because I know this would be affecting, if they don't read it, when March 1st comes in, they'll be like, why is things not working, right? So we want to make sure that we cover everything. I believe you have a resolution that to pass today. That's the other update. I wanted to talk about what that resolution was. I did include that in my technology update last week. So you probably know more about Edload 2D than most of my staff in the district. So I talk about that all the time. The process for Edload 2D is we have to get our data privacy agreement signed and our parent bill of rights signed every year for any vendors that we use PII information, personally identifiable information. So New York State actually is now collaborating with the BOCES to create a database of vendors that comply with the Edload 2D. So at this time, they haven't gotten access to this database yet. So they're supposed to, once you sign, we're supposed to get access to the database. According to them, there's at least 800 to 900 vendors that are already signed off on the master DPA, data privacy agreement. So we don't have to reach out to each vendor asking them to do it. We still have not heard anything about how we go about doing parent bill of rights because it's 2 documents. They only talked about signing up on the DPA. At least as a start, because we don't have to do this every year for each vendor. Then most of the time we're at this time planning and meeting with the vendors on licenses, who's using what, what's getting renewed for next year. So a lot of vendor spotlights and highlights sessions that we're attending with the vendors, basically asking, telling the usage report, because that is something that the board always asks. Do you look at the usage report before we renew the softwares? We do. So some of the softwares would be like with additional features. So I had a couple of sessions with teachers last week about what are the new features getting added on to some of the platforms that we are currently using. So that's my update for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinita. And Vinita, thank you for, you said that people don't read your emails, but Vinita was the one who pressed send on the snow closure notifications.
Oh, that one everybody did.
So thank you, Vinita.
Thank you.
I'll now ask Mr. Christopher Moreno, our Acting Director of People Personnel Services, to provide his update.
Thank you. So I'll start off at Blue Mountain Middle School. Our mental health team will be offering a parent workshop or a series of parent workshops. It's going to be centered around assisting students during those formative middle school years, which can be very challenging for many. I'm sure all the parents in the audience know. It's going to be focused on supporting parents with students who have struggles or difficulties in executive functioning, anxiety, and maybe some behavioral dysregulation. And it's going to offer tips and effective ways of communicating and managing those behaviors in order to reduce conflict during those years. At the high school, our Sailor classes, as part of their work-based learning and their enterprise, their school-based enterprises, they recently corresponded with the Double Good Popcorn Company, and they received a donation to provide to the high school staff of popcorn. And in addition, they are producing, marketing, and selling their homemade dog treats, again, as part of their enterprise and curriculum. And then this month, and actually this week, we started our CSEs, our annual reviews, at all levels. At the elementary, we're working through our students who are related service only students. They receive related services, but no educational programs. And at our secondary level, we're going through our 11th graders and our middle school ABC classes. And then obviously March through June will be the remaining annual reviews.
Thank you, Chris. That concludes the superintendent and cabinet update. And I just want to say thank you to our cabinet. I know it's been a very long day. It's been a long week, and I appreciate all of the information you provide to our board and community, as well as managing the day-to-day areas of your oversight. I wish you a good evening and get home safe, please.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Want to stay on policies.
You're saying also. Yeah. No. I should like.
It's only about 10.
I'll watch.
I think they're,
I'll take notes.
the good news is they're all second readings, okay? We didn't add any more for you. That's for next week. That's for next week.
Awesome.
We're on policy now.
Good.
Policy.
New business, did you allow that?
Yeah. We still allow that. Here, this is second reading of policy 3120, duties of the superintendent of schools.
Motion to waive the reading?
Second. All in favor? So this was again one that we brought to you last meeting. This is the second reading on just all of the responsibilities of the superintendent, really going on all the aspects that we would evaluate him on at the end of the year. And this is a new policy. Motion to approve policy 3120. Second. All in favor? Next policy, second reading. Policy 2240, board superintendent relationship. The board believes.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second, all in favor? This was just updating the wording. Oh, hold on a second. I'm confused. We're retiring. I apologize. It's 9:42.
Retiring relationship.
No. No, we are retiring this policy based on adopting the other policy
Yes.
because they otherwise may.
It's redundant.
It's redundant. Yes.
Point of privilege, just syntax note. Carmen, we need to make a note that under management functions, the last two bullets are duplicates, so we just have to update that.
What the last one?
Yeah,
Yes, on
We-
21.
on 31,
So we
20.
have to reapprove it with that change. I believe.
No, I think we
Sure.
can just do the cross out. It's not a change, it's just a repeat.
It's just a type.
Yeah, we don't have to re-vote on it.
Because it's the
It's
already
yes,
captured it
yes, I see it. It's like an extra two.
for point of emphasis.
Got it.
He really wants to do that.
So can I have do I have a motion?
Motion to retire policy 2240.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, this is the second reading of policy 4010, equivalent in instructional staff and materials. In accordance with the federal. Second, all in favor? This is.
This is a
law,
required,
legal
this is
required.
required.
Title one.
So just so the board knows, each year, we do have to submit a report to the state of New York, which they review and approve, that looks at ratio between schools that receive particular federal funding and schools that may not, and you have to have equivalence in the staff based upon student to staff ratios.
Motion to approve policy 4010.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, this is the second reading to retire policy 4112, length of student day. The length of the student day for its students.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
So this we said again was not our call, it comes from the state mandates on the length of our school day and how many seat minutes and hours and everything that we need to have in it within a day. Did you say what you were gonna say?
Only if you would want me to.
Yes.
Yes. And it does.
So does tomorrow count as seat time?
Tomorrow does not count as seat time, but we do have a daily calendar that Ms. Koch's office maintains where we calculate the total number of hours and days, and it's updated on events such as tomorrow. And it does provide us with an accurate day-to-day tracking to make sure that we are in compliance. Additionally, we do have to file a state report every time we close due to inclement weather.
They
No longer have to do that. Push nowadays.
Motion to retire policy 4112.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the next one is second reading to retire policy 4319, science and math instruction. Board of Education believes that instruction is not.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
So this again is we're not retiring science and math instruction. We are just again saying that math teacher, everybody remember, I love my math. We are again bound by the mandates of the next gen standards, so we are going to allow that and for our curriculum, and that can change, so we don't want to put anything that puts any restrictions on that.
Any questions?
Motion to retire policy 4319.
Second.
All in favor? This is the second reading of revisions for policy 4422, private tutoring services, district students.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor? This was just clarifying the rules around tutors and how students receive private tutoring.
And again, we were just making the wording more inclusive.
And bringing it up to date. Any other questions?
Motion to approve policy 4422.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Now we have second reading policy 8130, school safety plans and teams. Emergencies and violent incidents in school.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Once again, it doesn't say it's required, but I believe this is.
This is, I think this is required, right?
This is what
This
that's
reiterates
required.
the. This doesn't say, but I think this is one of the ones that reiterates the
what our school safety plan.
Yeah, the
and
laws,
teams look like.
we have to have it
Yes.
played, right?
Correct.
Motion to approve policy 8130.
Second. All in favor? Okay, this is, second reading policy 9520.6. Rights of employees to express breast milk in the workplace.
Motion to waive the reading?
Second,
All in favor?
this again is a required one, and then we were just confirming that we are in compliance.
Yeah, we confirmed that, right? We have.
Correct. We shared the first reading of the policy with all of our administrators and made sure that they, if they were not able to identify a suitable space in accordance with the policy, that they worked with, excuse me, with the facilities to update and to make sure they fit.
Okay, great. Okay.
Motion to approve policy
0.6.
95.6.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry, it's getting late. I was forgetting
my
to do that
glasses.
part.
All right, that concludes policy for this evening. Great work, everyone.
Don't worry, we have a lot more for next.
Um. Board comments, new business is next. I just want to remind the community that thought exchange, we extended that till Friday at 11:59 PM. We're gonna ask, maybe we can ask, share it one more time on Facebook and Instagram, the link so that people can access that.
Can we ask our PTA to share?
We can, I can ask them.
Just to make sure we get some feedback.
Please remind me tomorrow again.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Okay, thank you. That was my only board comments. Anyone else have anything? Okay, committee reports. Again, a lot of our work you see, that is brought here, audit being one of them, tonight with a biggie. So.
Audit budget and policy on the whole.
Finance.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, audit finance and policy were.
I just want to mention on behalf of PTA advocacy, they have a meeting tomorrow night. They're gonna have it virtually tomorrow night. And Lisa Anderson confirmed with me that she's gonna send out a invitation to the community to be emailed tomorrow, so everyone can join that. So that's still on. And I just wanted to mention that their next meeting, they have I think March 6th, they have Dana Levenberg and Pete Harcum coming in to talk to the community and answer questions. That's March 6th, so just mark your calendars for that. Last year they did that, and it was great, and they got a lot of students in there, a lot of questions. So they're hoping for a similar turnout. Then I also just want to mention the what the PTAs have going on. The high school PTA. One of the things they do to give back to the students, it's completely free, is carnivals. Their carnival is next Friday, February 13th. So, they set it up carnival 2:15 to 4, so kids can take the late bus home, which is great. That was one of the parameters. The kids can take the late bus. It's on the 13th.
That's Thursday.
It's on Thursday, because there's no late bus on Friday. And that's completely free. They feed the kids. They don't have a dunk tank in February, but
volunteering.
they have games, dancing and free food, so. A lot of kids show up for free food, and then the fashion show is March 7th, and they're still looking for donations. And there is a link on their website and on Facebook, but they're actually looking for men's clothes. Larger size men's clothes, so, and they have a donation box in the front of the high school, so you can just drop the clothes right off there.
Like larger size of large or larger?
Like
size,
medium,
like
large, extra large,
Okay.
and they'll take shoes as well.
Piggybacking off stuff from the PTA, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the 5th grade committee for the kickball tournament that was on Friday last week. I know one of the things when we decided to restructure the schools, I advocated for was having a space for our students to be able to get together. And I kept envisioning the dome, kept bringing that up, and I thought it was exactly what I wanted. Now, of course, there's a few minor tweaks that I would love to make, but that's part of our capital project, right?
Yes.
Enhancing that dome. So I just want to say thank you to the entire community. That was such a wonderful night out. It made me so happy to see everyone coming together and the kids having so much fun. And we were able to raise a little bit of money in the process for the Ashokan trip.
Yes, and there's a dance. There's a
There's a
dance.
pre-KK dance this Friday at Furnace Woods. And then I believe I might be getting the date wrong, and Mariella, I apologize if I am. I believe March 20th will be the next dance for first and second grade.
Did you want to mention the roundtable with Dana that we're?
Yeah, in a couple days. You can keep that tomorrow. Well, yeah, it's virtual, so it'll still be happening. You can speak to it.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say that we're, Eric and I are participating in a roundtable, virtual roundtable with Dana Levenberg tomorrow. Just about budget and issues that our schools are facing. So, we have the opportunity to ask her questions. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and on Friday, I'm joining the live virtual Capital Conference. That's another advocacy meeting, but it's virtual, so I can join that. They have a following day there in Albany, so. And I will be in Albany with the cheerleaders on Saturday, so. And then the last thing was, Lauren and I were able to join the CIA committee, the curriculum committee. That's a full district committee that has staff, parents, administrators. Lauren and I we're lucky enough to get to sit in there and see some of the collaborative work and the conversations that they have K-12 and what they're working on. And it's everything from evaluating potential new courses to what's working and not working. We talked about developing a form for teachers to present to that group, which I think is the exact purpose of the group. You know, you really get a full picture of what's going on K-12. Dr. Ruller does have those notes online for anyone in the community to look at. It's under her curriculum page. So if you really want to know what's going on in curriculum, and you want to see all the work that's happening, that's a great place to look. So we had a presentation about they touched on it tonight about the new music program with the drums. That's actually linked on that page. So everyone can take a look at it. So I think that was it. Oh, the elementary scheduling committee is going to come together. And that was it. That was it.
And happy birthday to Amelia.
And happy birthday to Amelia.
Thank you, guys.
All right. I hope I didn't miss anything. I try to keep track of my notes and all of our meetings, but we missed anything. I don't know if that we covered the PTAs. And that's it, right? We haven't had a PD meeting, Tamika, right? No, not yet. Okay, all right, that's a
Motion to